Hello friends, welcome to our channel. In today's video, we'll explore an exciting video on what if Naruto had the hellbound summoning contract. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's dive into the story. In a secret room hidden from everyone, Namikaze Kushina was giving birth. She was told by doctors, years before, that if she were to have a child then she would lose her life. But her desire to be a mother outweighed her fear of death. Now inside the room were four people: the Yondaime, Kakashi, the doctor, and Kushina herself. Namikaze Minato sat next to his wife holding her hand, both proud and heartbroken about what was happening. Kakashi stood next to the entrance and watched as his father figure shared the last few moments of his wife's life, Kakashi's mother figure. After what seemed to be an eternity, they heard crying, which meant that the child was born. The doctor handed over the baby boy to his mother for the first and last time. She looked at him and tears rolled down her face. With her last breaths she said, "I love you, Naruto, and I will always be looking down at you with love. I know you will do great things." With that she closed her eyes, never to open them again. Minato was crying because the love of his life had just passed away. He looked at his wife and whispered, "Watch over him and me, my love. I will raise him to become the greatest ninja of all time." He smiled upon looking at his son and lifted him up. "You are such a loud little squirt, I can only hope that I can handle you." After that he looked at Kakashi, and the two men shared a moment of silence for the now departed Kushina. "I'm sorry for your loss, Sensei," Kakashi said. "I am too, but the only thing I can do now is raise Naruto how Kushina would have wanted him to be raised." Before Kakashi could respond, Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime, came running in shouting, "Minato, you have to hurry, the nine-tailed fox has just appeared and is about to destroy the village." The Yondaime stared at Hiruzen, shocked to say the least. He handed Naruto to Sarutobi and rushed outside to see what was happening. He saw Kurama taking out half of the forest on its way to Konoha. This is not good, and there is only one way to stop this. He turns to see Sarutobi standing next to him. "I have to seal the QB inside Naruto." Sarutobi was flabbergasted to say the least. "But why? We could find another child. Why put your son through such an ordeal?" the Sandaime asked. "I would not ask others to do something I would not be willing to do," responded the Yondaime as he took his son and rushed to the battlefield. Outside the city wall, "What is the status report?" shouted the Minato to an Enbu captain standing nearby. "We have already lost over 100 men. The damned fox is just too powerful," the Enbu replied, not asking why his leader was carrying a baby into battle. "Okay, pull everyone out, I will deal with him by myself." "Yes, sir," the Enbu then proceeded to call everyone out of battle. Once everyone was gone, a large cloud appeared, and after it dissipated, a giant toad with a vest and knife sat staring down the QB. "So the fox has come," stated Gamabuta. "Yes, and I need you to keep him occupied while I prepare for the seal." "Okay, but I won't be able to hold him for long, he is much more powerful than I am. Just buy me 5 minutes, that's all I ask." While saying this he started a long and very complicated set of hand seals. The two extremely large animals collide and the earth shook with such intensity that picture frames fell off inside the houses in the city. Then all of a sudden the fox disappeared, and so did the toad. The Yondaime and Naruto go plummeting to the earth with no toad supporting them. But Kakashi and Sarutobi saved them both at the last second. Naruto was crying in Kakashi's arms. He didn't like dropping from 100 feet in the air. And the Sandaime was now holding the deceased Minato. Sarutobi had his head bowed and a single tear came down, something he had not done in well over 50 years. "Sensei is dead?" Kakashi questioned, trying to soothe the squirming and screaming Naruto. "I am afraid so, Kakashi, I am afraid so." Well, isn't this a lovely gathering we have here?" came a dark voice from behind Kakashi. Both ninja jump up. Kakashi holding Naruto in a defensive position and Sarutobi in his famous monkey taijutsu pose. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" stated Sarutobi in a tone that dared the mystery man to attack. "That is no way to address a friend of your beloved sensei, now is it, Hiruzen-kun?" cooed the dark figure. "What are you talking about? Everyone from the age of my senseis are old and decrepit. You look younger than me," shot off the professor, pissed off at the familiarity that the young man addressed him. "I am hurt that you wouldn't recognize me, Hiruzen-kun, but I can see that you really don't know who I am. Well, let me tell you. My name is Uchiha Madara. The rival to the Shodai Hokage, the self-proclaimed Uchiha, said in a mocking tone. That is not possible. Madara died in his fight with the Shodai. Kakashi stated in disbelief. Oh, but Kakashi, I am Madara and I did not die at the hands of Senju-san, but I nearly did. Madara said, his voice trailing off as though remembering a distant memory. Well, if you are Madara, why are you here and how have you lived for so long? Questioned the Sandaime. Well, I won't answer your second because of the first. Madara dead-pained. The reason is I have come to destroy Konoha, but my plane was ruined by the Yondaime when he sealed my weapon inside that boy. Both Konoha ninjas stared in shock at the Nook Nin. And now I will kill the boy and release the Kyuubi so that my dream will be realized, yelled Madara, charging at Kakashi with a kunai. No, you won't, screamed the third, appearing in front of Kakashi, blocking the kunai with his infamous monkey staff. Kakashi, switch me places and stall him for a few moments. He is too powerful and there is only one way to do it. Yes sir. Kakashi performed a substitution jutsu and was now holding a kunai, blocking Madara, and the Sandaime was holding Naruto. Bizarrely, the boy was quiet as though he understood the severity of the situation. While the two Sharingan users were squaring off, Sarutobi started a long and complicated set of hand seals. All of a sudden Kakashi flies past Sarutobi, caused by a vicious kick from Madara. But before the Uchiha could make his next move, the god of ninja finished his hand sequence and a ghostly figure appeared behind the third. Madara, I don't know how you have survived for so long, but this ends now. Sarutobi exclaimed as the Shinigami plunged his arm through the old Hokage and latched onto Madara, dragging the man's soul out bit by bit. But something went wrong, for the Sandaime intended to seal Madara into himself, taking the man out with him, but Naruto giggled. Sarutobi looked down and the boy and smiled, but at that moment the seal on Naruto's stomach started to glow, and when Madara's soul was over the boy, the soul was sucked into the spiral-shaped seal. The third was surprised because he never heard of something like this happening, but he only had a moment because the next he knew he was inside the death god's stomach. He saw Minato and immediately began reprimanding blonde grinning fool. Back out with Naruto and Kakashi. Kakashi was stunned to say the least. He just witnessed the loss of two of the greatest ninja of their generations in only an hour. Then he froze. Did Naruto survive? The silver-haired scarecrow thought, but his fears were squashed when he heard some more giggling coming from the side of the once great professor. Kakashi walked over to the body of the third and picked up the babe. I promise upon the graves of all my precious people that I will raise you to become a man your parents would be proud of. With that he summoned a dog and sent Hai both cages had died and to come and collect the bodies. Kakashi took one more look at his sensei and a single tear fell from his face. Goodbye sensei, I will protect your son like he was my own. A week after the attack inside of the Hokage's tower, the council were engaged in an intense discussion. The topic was the death of the demon babe. Now the reason it was so intense was not because the council was spit. No, they were discussing the best way to kill the brat and rid themselves of the Kyuubi forever. After a while of listening to more and more elaborate ways to kill little Naruto, the newly pronounced Hokage stood up and the room quieted immediately. How is not the issue. What we need to decide is when and whether to make it public or in secret, a severely bandaged Danzo stated in a crisp tone. I say we do it tonight in secret. Kakashi seems very attached to the demon and we may have to kill him in order to do the deed, a council member said. This one seems intelligent, I will have to keep that in mind, thought Danzo, for the one who spoke was his replacement since he became Hokage. That is an excellent idea. Does anyone else have a differing opinion? Questioned the old war hawk. No one spoke, so Danzo ended the meeting saying that the child would be dead tomorrow morning and that Kakashi would too if he tried to interfere. By eliminating Kakashi, every major opposition will be gone and I will be able to rule with an iron fist, Danzo thought with an evil grin on his face. But unknown to Danzo was that a certain Uchiha Anbu captain was making preparations to save both Kakashi's and Naruto's lives. With Kakashi was feeding Naruto in his apartment. How am I going to raise you? I may be a Junin, but I am still only 19 years old, thought the confused scarecrow. During this time Kakashi had his TV on with a tape on how to raise children. Once the baby has stopped eating, you have to hold him over your shoulder and pat his back so he can burp like this, the woman on the television said while giving an example. Luckily enough, at that exact time little Naruto was full, so Kakashi followed exactly what the woman said. I wonder why she has a towel over her shoulder, Kakashi wondered. As though the woman on the screen was reading his mind, she said, Make sure you have a towel over the shoulder you are burping the baby. The reason is that he may spit up and the towel will prevent it from getting on your clothes, and right on cue the babe let loose and Kakashi had baby vomit all over his vest. Kakashi scowled at the television and muttered something about stupid programs never telling you the important stuff in time. He then takes Naruto into the bedroom and places him in the crib he bought earlier that morning. He walked over to his closet, took off his now soiled vest and replaced it with a nice clean one. He then walks over to the crib and sees that Naruto is fast asleep. Kakashi eyes smiles and just looks in the peaceful little bundle. He stays like that for 5 minutes reminiscing about days gone by. He then hears a knocking at the door. He walks over and opens the door. Much to his surprise, Midarashi Anko was standing there with a basket of baby supplies. Kakashi quickly slips out the door and closes it before Anko can say a word. "What are you doing here?" Kakashi asked not unkindly. "Oh, I heard from the grapevine that you adopted a kid and I wanted to bring over a gift and see the little tyke," Anko said. Then her voice took change to a sickly sweet one. "So, when were you going to tell me about this, Kakashi-kun? We've been dating for a few months now and you never brought this up. I think that this is an important thing to mention when you have a girlfriend." After saying this, she gives Kakashi an evil grin that spells doom. Of the man doesn't give her a good explanation. In somewhat of a panic, Kakashi stammers out, I can explain. Just come inside. But for heaven's sake be quiet, the baby is asleep." With this said, the two ninja walk inside. They walked over to a couch and sat down. "Start taking Cyclops. Okay, well, you know how the village was almost destroyed a week ago by the nine-tailed fox, right?" "Well, no shit, I remember. I was in the infirmary for 2 days after getting hit by a chakra blast," Anko exclaimed. "Shush, Naruto is still asleep," Kakashi hisses. "Oh, sorry. Keep going." "Well, the Yondaime had a kid on that same day." Kakashi looks down after saying this, and his wife didn't survive the birthing. "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry," Anko whispered, realizing how much pain the man before him must be in. "So I take it that the baby, you called him Naruto I believe, is their child?" "Yes, but he is in danger and I have to always keep him near me." "WHWH what?" hissed the snake. Kunoichi stammered. "This isn't common knowledge yet, but the boy has the fox sealed inside of him." "He does," screamed Anko. From the other room, Naruto could be heard crying. "Nice going, Anko-chan," Kakashi said after a sigh. He then goes into his bedroom to pick up Naruto. "So that baby has the fox sealed inside of him? Is that safe? Will the child be okay? Will he become the demon?" These were only some of the thoughts flying through Anko's mind. When Kakashi returned bouncing Naruto in order to comfort him, Anko asked what she thinks is the most pressing of the questions. Is the child going to be able to suppress the demon, or will he be corrupted by it? She knew that Naruto couldn't be a demon now. The baby was too innocent. "He will be fine, I trust my sensei. Also, the seal had the power of the Shinigami to boot," Kakashi answered, fully understanding his girlfriend's reasons for asking. After that answer, Anko seemed completely relaxed. "That makes me feel better." Anko smiled. "Now are you going to let me say hi to him, or are you going to hog him all day?" Kakashi eyes smiles and hands the child over to his girlfriend. She reached out and grabs him, then pulls Naruto up close and stares down at him. Kakashi notices how soft her eyes get when she looked down at him, and he thought, I have never seen her like this. She has always been so serious or angry. I like this side of her. Anko then looks up and said, "He is beautiful, but if you ever tell anyone about this moment, I will shove a snake up your ass and leave it there for a month." Kakashi pales and sweat drops, fully aware that she would. He then walks over to the basket full of baby supplies. "Anko, thanks a lot. I didn't even think of getting a pacifier," Kakashi said. "No problem, I figured you would be too lazy to look through the store," Anko said and winked. "What would I do without you? Probably be doing exactly what you would be doing now. Well, except you would probably still have a sleeping baby." They both start laughing until Naruto starts crying. "What's wrong?" Anko asks the baby. But Kakashi knows exactly what is irritating Naruto because of his enhanced sense of smell. "How can you need another diaper change? I changed you just before you ate," Kakashi said in an exasperated tone. Anko giggles while handing Naruto back to Kakashi. "Well, I better let daddy take care of his little baby," Anko teased and headed for the door. "Thanks again for the basket," Kakashi said. "No problem, I will see you around dinner time." I will bring some dango and some sake, and with that Anko left. Around 6 p.m. Kakashi was walking around Naruto in hand reading his perverted orange book when he hears a knocking on the door. Opening the door, he sees his girlfriend with 12 boxes of dango and about 5 full bottles of sake. "Are you seriously reading that shit in front of the baby?" Anko yelled at her lazy boyfriend. "What, it's not like he can read or understand it. Why should I not get to read? And when did you start caring that I read this?" Kakashi defended himself. "I don't care that he can't read or understand, it's the principle, and don't try to get me off track or I will cut your tongue out and feed it to one of your summons." "And how do you expect to gear?" "I have my ways," Anko replied with an evil grin, daring Kakashi to keep arguing with her. Kakashi backs down, realizing the danger he is in, and quickly changes the subject. "You know I shouldn't drink, not with having to take care of the baby," Kakashi says while eyeing the 5 bottles of sake. "Who ever said any of this was for you?" "Oh, well, I just assumed," Kakashi trailed off. "Well, don't assume anything, isn't that one of your things? Look under the underneath." Kakashi eye smiles and scratches his head in defeat. "So I take it you have adopted your sensei's old habits. I guess they don't call you the copycat ninja for nothing." Kakashi was going to answer back, but a small puff of smoke appeared within a few feet of the couple. They both reach for their weapons until they notice it is an Anbu captain. Kakashi asks, "What can we do for you, Anbu? Isn't it standard protocol to knock at the door instead of shunshin into people's homes?" Kakashi accused the newcomer. "Kakashi-san, but I have very important and dire news with that. The weasel mask wearing Anbu shows his identity as Uchiha Itachi." "Itachi-san, what are you doing here? What news do you have? How important is it?" Kakashi berated the younger captain with questions, knowing that the Uchiha genius rarely did anything out of the ordinary and never without good reason. "I am afraid I have come to tell you to leave Konoha with Naruto." "Wait, what?" Anko butts in. "Danzo and the council has decided that in order to keep Konoha safe, they will assassinate Naruto later tonight, and that if you," points to Kakashi, "interfere, they will illuminate you as well." "You have got to be kidding, this child is no threat and will never be. Well, at least not to this village," Kakashi responds, still in shock about the whole situation. "I am afraid that the others see differently. The news is already spreading that the child has a demon fox sealed within him. He will never be able to live a normal life. Take Anko here, for example. Have you ever felt comfortable in this village ever since Orochimaru betrayed you and Konoha?" Anko give no reply. "I guess not." "So you're saying that in order to save Naruto I must leave my home and become a Nook ninja?" Kakashi asks in a very serious tone. "I am afraid so. I am fully willing to help you in this ordeal. I am to do the assassination." The other two look at him in surprise. "Why are you willing to do this? You realize you could be pronounced as a traitor if they found out." "I am fully aware of the consequences, Kakashi. And for my reasons, I will keep that to myself. I may tell you later in life, but not now." "What do you mean by later? If Kakashi and Naruto leave, then we may never see them again." Anko bursts out, afraid of losing the only person who has ever seen her as Anko and not as the traitor pet. The Uchiha prodigal's response was to only smiles and didn't say a word. "Okay, so if I do leave with Naruto, how can you help me?" Kakashi asks. "You can't seriously be contemplating leaving?" Anko rounds on Kakashi. "I am, and I fully intend to. I gave my word to Minato-sensei that I would protect and raise Naruto, and I intend to do just that." "Then I am coming with you," Anko exclaims. "What, why?" "Because you are the only one who has seen me as Anko. You make me feel wanted and happy. I will join you and help raise Naruto." "Do you realize what you are giving up?" "Yeah, I do. I am giving up a village who doesn't want me, a village that despises me and wants nothing more than to see me perish on a mission. If that is how you feel, I would be more than happy to have you come with me. I would have hated to leave without you." And with that said, they kissed, but not for long, because Itachi cleared his throat, ruining the moment. "Okay, now that that was decided, we can move on with the preparations," Itachi said, making it clear that it was time to get ready. An hour afterwards, both Kakashi and Anko pack only the necessities, for they planned on moving fast and always being ready to move at a moment's notice. Itachi explained that he was to come and kill the boy at 2 in the morning. This gives Kakashi and Anko 7 hours to escape, plenty of time to get to Wave Country and make preparations to evade any hunter ninja that Danzo sends. Once prepared, both Kakashi and Anko head out to the area where the Kyuubi had attacked. The wall was damaged during the fight and had not been completely repaired. Very few ninja were stationed there because there had been no news of any of the surrounding nations showing any signs of a threat. Thus, this was a perfect escape route for the couple. Naruto was placed inside of a special harness attached to Kakashi's stomach. The harness was made to look like an extra layer of armor so that it didn't give away that it was actually holding a baby in case they met anyone along the way. Luckily for them they didn't, and they made it out of the rubble quickly and quietly. Now they were jumping from tree branch to tree branch using chakra to propel them further and faster than they usually would have traveled. Kakashi-kun, what are you planning to do once we have escaped notice of the hunter Nin? Well, we will have to travel around and set up a base in one of the smaller countries. We can then start to take up missionary work and start to make a living for ourselves. As long as I'm with you everything will be fine, but if you ever think of breaking up with me I swear I will rip out your Sharingan and feed it to one of my snakes. Kakashi's sweat dropped because he knew she would follow up on that promise if she got the chance. I promise I won't. You gave up so much to come with me. When we get out of this mess and we have set up a decent living, will you marry me? Kakashi asks with a serious look on his face. Of course I won't. I won't say yes unless you have a big shiny diamond on a ring and you are sniveling only your knees like the dog you are, Anko replies with a wicked grin on her face. But Kakashi gives her an eye smile because he knew she said yes, and they proceeded on their way to Wave Country. 2 o'clock in the morning, Konoha a Puff appears in front of the Hokage's desk with the Uchiha Anbu bowing in front of the old war hawk. So I take it the dead was done, Danzo while doing the victory dance inside of his head. I am afraid not, Sir Kakashi, and the babies seem to have left several hours ago. All the necessities have been taken and there is nothing left to show that there are intentions of returning Hokage Dono. What? Exclaimed Danzo. His victory dance went up in flames of anger. Itachi, gather a group of elite Anbu and go after them. Make sure you have at least one in Izuka so that you can track their scent. I want them captured and killed by dawn, you hear me? Yes, Hokage, Itachi said and shunshined away. I can't believe it has been 6 years already, Kakashi thinks while watching Naruto practice his taijutsu on a wooden dummy. Kakashi continues to stare and thinks back upon all that has happened over the years. He and Anko have been married for 3 years now and have taken Naruto in as an adopted son. They currently reside next to a small village in Tea Country. Right now Anko is out on a small mission and Kakashi is watching and training Naruto. The couple has taken to switching between training Naruto and doing missions so that the boy isn't put into danger. Whenever Anko trained Naruto, they generally worked on messing with an opponent's mind, traps, and first aid. When it was Kakashi's turn, the Scarecrow helped the young fox Jinchuriku. They worked on improving Naruto's taijutsu, working on chakra manipulation and battle strategies. Kakashi is shaken from his recollections when he heard 2 large cracks. Kakashi looks more intently at the dummy Naruto was beating on and notices a few cracks on the surface. Wow, I am impressed that Naruto is able to deal that powerful of a blow at such a young age. After this thought he calls Naruto over to him. Hey Naruto, come here for a second, will you? Naruto turns his attentionless dummy and rushes over to his stepfather. What's up to San? Are we going to be able to work on chakra stuff? Be patient. But yes, we will. Kakashi then smiles down at his son. Once you master this technique you will be able to channel and manipulate chakra, which is very different than just calling on it, I may add. Kakashi looks sternly at Naruto at this point. Now you know that having the demon sealed within you will make it more difficult to manipulate and control you chakra. Because of this we will work on chakra control exclusively until I deem fit. Naruto looks a little sad that he won't be doing cool jutsus anytime soon, but then perks up. Say to San, will this mean I will be able to run straight up trees and walk on water? Kakashi was surprised because he never explained to his son that those were chakra controlling exercises. Yes Naruto, you will, but not for some time. You have to get past the basics first. He then proceeds to walk over to a nearby tree and plucks off a leaf and walks back. This will be your new training partner, the Scarecrow proclaims, holding the leaf out for Naruto to grab. Once said boy grabs the leaf, Kakashi tells him to lie down on his back and place the leaf on his forehead. Now here is the hard part. I want you to focus chakra into the leaf, making it stick to your skin. When you think it is good and stuck, tilt your chin and see if it falls off. If it does, start again, but if it stays on, continue getting up slowly until you are standing perfectly straight. Got all that? Yep. Now watch me master this in 10 minutes flat. Naruto exclaims and starts focusing chakra into the leaf. Kakashi then walks away knowing that this exercise will take at least a day to master. Kakashi enters their home and enters the pantry. He walks to the very back and turns to face where they keep lima beans. Thank God no one likes these nasty things, otherwise my hiding place would be ruined. Kakashi reaches out, pulls the lima beans out and pushes a hidden button. A small unnoticeable trapdoor opens up and the scarecrow walks down the trapdoor, closing behind him. Inside was a beautiful library filled with books. The weird thing was that all the books were the same color, orange. Kakashi then sits down in an armchair and grabs the orange book next to him. He opens it up and almost immediately begins to giggle. Back with Naruto, Naruto was trying his hardest to force his chakra into the leaf, but for the strangest reason, instead of sticking to his forehead, the leaf would shoot off. There was no wind, so this confused the young fox Jinchuriki. After what felt like the 100th time, Naruto had a small meltdown and started to yell the leaf. "What is your problem, you stupid leaf? Why do you keep shooting off my head instead of sticking?" He then realized that he was yelling at a leaf and felt really stupid. Toussaint said this would be hard, but I can't believe it is this hard, there must be a trick to it, the blonde thought. He then proceeded to do what he always did when in a predicament that required his full attention. He meditated. Okay, so I am putting as much chakra into the leaf as I can to supercharge it so that it sticks to my skin. What am I doing wrong? Wait, I'm treating this like a magnet, aren't I? If I put too much pressure it will shoot off, but if I put too little it won't be able to attract. Naruto finished his thought, got the leaf and lied back down. Okay, so now all I have to do is figure out how much chakra I will need to put into it. 10 minutes passed and Naruto is able to sit up. This drives the little blonde even further. Now that I understand how much it takes to keep it on, I just have to concentrate to keep it at that level and I will be golden, Naruto thought with a fox-like grin on his face. He continues sitting up with the leaf on his head for another 5 minutes until he can stand up. Finally, after 5 more minutes, he is walking around with the leaf stuck to his forehead. Toussaint, I did it, the young boy shouts, back with Kakashi. Kakashi hears something that sounded like Naruto but brushed it off as him getting angry about the exercise. In this time he had finished the orange book next to him and is currently reading the next in the series. After ignoring Naruto's yell of frustration, at least that is what he thought it was, he brings his perverted novel back up to his face and proceeds to giggle like a schoolgirl. Back with Naruto, Naruto runs into the house in search of Kakashi. He looks in the kitchen, living room, office, and also the bedroom but couldn't find the man. Where could that guy go? Naruto muttered under his breather, growing anxious about showing his stepdad how he accomplished a task said father said would take a full day. He continues to search the house until he looks into the pantry and sees a sack of lima beans on the floor. Why in hell would these even be in our house? Everyone hates them. Naruto asks to no one. He goes to put them back on the shelf when he notices that there is a button he has never seen before in his life. Out of sheer curiosity he reaches his hand out and pushes it. When he does, a trap floor appears. When did we ever have this? The young blonde wondered as he approached it. He looks down and sees that light is glowing down there. After seeing this, his curiosity got the better of him and he sneaks down the stairs. Halfway down the staircase he hears some giggling. Now that's a weird sound. He proceeds to walk down, with more care this time, until he reaches the last step. Naruto looks around the corner and sees a huge room filled with books. Wow, this is amazing, but why are all the books the same color? The young fox asks as he stares in wonder at the vast collection. Suddenly the giggling he heard early starts back up again and he notices an armchair facing away from him. Naruto creaks over to it, wondering who would be under his house when he notices a tuft of white hair. Toussaint, you jerk, he muttered under his breath. Then suddenly he gets an evil grin on his face as the best prank in the world settles on his face. Unknown to both Kakashi and Enko, Naruto has been working on a gift only certain ninja can perform without a transformation jutsu. Naruto has, for the past year and a half, perfected his ability to mimic both Kakashi and Enko's voices. Getting ready to try it out, he takes in a deep breath and yells as loud as possible in Enko's voice, "What the hell is this?" Kakashi literally jumped out of his seat and crashed into the ceiling. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, I am so dead, were the only thoughts going through his head. Enko had threatened to cut his little friend off if she ever caught him with another of Jiraiya's masterpieces. He was sweating bullets until he hears a laughter that didn't sound at all like his wife but his adopted son. Naruto! Shouted Kakashi after seeing the boy lying down on the floor laughing with tears coming out of his eyes. The yell caught Naruto's attention and he looked up. Kakashi was cloaked in a dark aura that had Naruto whimpering in the corner. Naruto, do you have any idea what you have just done? Kakashi said in a quiet voice that would make the dead cower in their graves. To-san, what do you mean? Naruto said, almost wetting himself. Kakashi realized what he was doing and cut of the killer intent. From now on he was emanating. I'm sorry Naruto. It's just that this is my biggest secret and if Anko finds out I'm dead, Kakashi said in a dejected sort of way. Don't worry To-san, I won't tell Ka-san, Naruto reassured his adopted father. With that said, Kakashi calmed down and took his son upstairs, closed up the secret library, and replaced the Lima bin bag. He guided the young boy back outside and told him to show how far he had gotten with the leaf exercise. Naruto then immediately placed the leaf on his head and it stuck. Kakashi had Naruto run laps and do push-ups and other forms of physical exercise, but the leaf never left the boys. For be surprised and pleased. He mastered this in less than an hour, and he has the fox inside that messes this chakra control. My boy may be a genius like his father. With that thought he remembered how amazing his sensei was. I promise, I will do my best to train him and make him powerful. Naruto noticed that Kakashi was zoning out and decided to play a trick on him. The young blonde went up behind him and, with his best Anko impersonation, shouted, Hey Kakashi-kun, so were you and our son off to when I got home? Kakashi jumped out a good 20 feet in surprise and slowly looked behind him, fear in his eyes. What he saw really pissed him off. Okay Mr. Prankster, it looks like you have plenty of energy left, let's get to your next lesson. Naruto looked really excited about more training, but little did he know Kakashi planned on working the young boy down to the bone for that last prank. Okay Naruto here, Kakashi said, throwing Naruto a small twig. Naruto caught and waited for instructions. Now for this exercise you will hold your palm out flat and balance the stick vertically. It's not too different from leaf exercise, Kakashi instructed. Kakashi was sure that this would take Naruto some time but decided to stick around instead of wandering off. However, Kakashi was surprised that Naruto stopped trying after 10 minutes of work. He just sat down and appeared to meditate. Is he meditating? I don't think Anko nor I have showed him that. I wonder where he got the idea, Kakashi pondered. Before the young fox was even instructed on what to do, he came up with a game plan. First he would experiment and get a hold of what was going on. Then he would meditate on it and try to figure out the trick. Finally he would implement it and hopefully speed up the process. Okay, so the same concept applies here, where I have to have a specific amount of chakra coursing through it at a time. But because it is not flat, I have to shoot my chakra up the center like a pillar for stability. Alright, I think I understand now. Once he finished his thoughts, this taking about 5 minutes, he picked up the stick and tried out his method. To both Kakashi and Naruto's surprise, the young blonde did it perfectly on the first attempted. Did I do that correctly To-san? Naruto said in disbelief. Good job Naruto, I guess we can move on to the next step, Kakashi said, still a little surprised. The next step is to flip your hand over so it is facing down, but you have to keep the stick fixed to your hand. How am I supposed to do that? Naruto exclaimed. Well Mr. Smarty Pants, if you could master the first two so easily, you should be able to figure this out. Fine, but if I get it within the hour, we are having ramen tonight for dinner. Sounds good, but if you don't, I will be having pot stickers while you eat a plate of veggies. Naruto crumbled up his face and thought, I hate vegetables, but if I can get ramen out of it I will take that chance. You're on old man, Naruto yelled, giving this dad a thumbs up. 50 minutes later, looks like you're going to be eating nothing but veggies tonight, Gaki. Oh crap, I only have 10 minutes until time's up, Naruto thought nervously. Naruto had just figured out the trick on how to keep it on, but he had yet to master it. Naruto proceeded to focus with all his might on the task at hand. 9 minutes then passes and there were still no results any of the hard work the young blonde was putting in. You have 30 seconds Naruto, you lost. But once Kakashi said that, Naruto flipped his hand over one last time and it worked. Yahoo! Naruto yelled after completing the task. In your face To-san, and you told me to just give up. Well, I have to say I am impressed. You have mastered 3 different chakra exercises in one day. With the amount of chakra you have and how little work you have done beforehand, you have an amazing skill. You may even have gained your father's genius. Naruto went wide-eyed because Kakashi rarely talked about his real dad. Anko would tell him stories whenever he asked, but Kakashi always seemed to shut down. Anko told Naruto that his father was Kakashi's sensei and that Kakashi watched him sacrifice his life for the village. He misses him greatly, just like he has been a father for you. Your father was a father for him, was the last thing the Shadow Snake told him. Well, we still have a couple of hours before dinner. Let's start your next lesson, tree climbing. After Kakashi gave Naruto a kunai and explained the concept, the young blonde went rushing over to the nearest tree and proceeded to run up it. The first attempt almost made Kakashi laugh because once the young boy's momentum stopped, he fell and landed with a loud thump on his head. But after 30 minutes Naruto was able to run halfway up the tree. Kakashi was impressed and decided that it was time to call in Jiraiya for some extra help. 2 weeks later Anko had come back, the day after Naruto had worked on chakra control, with the payment of an S-ranked mission. Naruto had mastered the tree climbing exercise and is in the process of mastering the water walking technique. Kakashi was just preparing to head out on his own mission, this one an assassination mission on a bandit gang. This was an S-ranked mission because there were 4 ninja of unknown power leading this gang. Neither Kakashi nor Anko would tell Naruto what their mission was because they didn't want him to worry. But unknown to both Anko and Naruto, they were going to be visited by the first Konoha ninja they had seen since leaving the place. Naruto was out at the edge of the lake near the house. He wore only a pair of shorts and was drenched because of the amount of times he has taken a plunge. Because he was concentrating so hard on the task at hand, he hadn't noticed that a man with a lot of white spiky hair was sitting on a stump behind him. The man seemed content with just watching the boy. In truth, he was reminiscing on the past when he trained Anther young blonde. He was awoken from his trip along memory lane when he heard a shout. Damn it, why can't I get this right? Naruto yelled, absolutely pissed of that he wasn't getting this exercise. He then turned around and saw the strange man behind him. Hi. Naruto said, a little wary of who this person was. Well, hello there, I take it you're Naruto, responded the old man. How did you know? You carry an uncanny resemblance to my old apprentice. Naruto just stared in response. Also, Kakashi asked me to come and help out with your training. To-san asked you to help me. And who was your apprentice? Yep, and it looks like you needed, responded the man, avoiding the second question. That statement really pissed Naruto off. Well, I don't need help from an old man like you who wears a headband that doesn't even make sense. Oil? Seriously? I may not know much about the world, but I know there is not oil country. So who are you? Naruto shouted. Now it was the old man's turn to get angry. You little brat, do you not know who I am? I have no idea, Naruto dead-pained, causing the man to fall on his face. Getting back up, he takes what looks like a taijutsu stance, and for some reason the sound of drums start up. I am the great Toad Sage. But that is merely a disguise. But I will tell you my true identity. I am the man who has no enemies in the north, south, east, and west, not even in the heavens. I am one of the Sannin, white-haired frog tamer. Even a baby crying would stare in awe. I am the great Jiraiya. This was taken straight from the anime with slight changes. Naruto just stared at the man with a what the fuck expression on his face. Never heard of you, Naruto responded, making Jiraiya face plant again. Jiraiya then turned to a tree not far away and yelled at it. Care to explain why you never told my godson who I am? Well, if you would drop by every once in a while I may have bothered, but you haven't seen the kid since the day we escaped from the village Kakashi Kui. I haven't come. That excuse would only be credible if you came at least once a year, but you haven't seen the boy for 6 years, asshole. I'm sorry, alright, but I didn't come here to be berated by a cyclops and be made fun of by a 6-year-old, Jiraiya exclaimed. I came here to put a couple of seals on him, see how he has progressed in the ninja arts, decide when I will train him, and leave. Wait, you're not staying for a while? Naruto asked. Why would I? I just found out that I have a godfather. If that is not enough, you also trained my father and I know so little about him. Jiraiya turned to Kakashi and said, so I'm not the only one who tries to keep those memories repressed. What do you mean? Naruto asked. The death of your father was traumatic experience for the two of them, Naruto, a new voice answered. Ka-san, what do you mean? Naruto asked. Anko, do you not remember what I told you earlier? Anko asked and only got a headshake in response. She sighed, your father was like a father to Kakashi. Imagine if he died, how would you feel? But he won't die, He's not old or anything. Neither was your father Naruto nor your mother. Your mother died giving you life and your father died protecting you, and Konoha Anko spat out the last word. Naruto froze because discussing Konoha was a taboo in the family and because he just realized how much pain his stepdad must have felt. He also realized why Kakashi never spoke of his father. Jiraiya has an equal if not harder burden. Minato was as close to a son that the old hermit ever had. He has been in more battles than I care to imagine, has killed men without blinking an eye. He is one of the toughest people in the world, but when we told him what happened to your father, Jiraiya cried. Naruto turned to Jiraiya, who was wearing a somber expression. The truth is, you look so much like Minato when he was a kid that it is hard to look at you and not remember him. They continued to talk about the past until it got dark and Enko told them all to come to the house and have dinner. When they got back to the house, the mood had lifted tremendously and they were all making jokes. After dinner, Naruto was tired and went to bed. The other three, on the other hand, continued to talk and reminisce about the past. They discussed Konoha and how it has gone to shit ever since Danzo took over. Well, that is what Jiraiya said. In actuality, Jiraiya has been working against Danzo and making sure that the old Warhawk had plenty of paperwork. When Jiraiya told this to the couple, they all had a good laugh because they remembered how much Minato used to bitch and moan about doing it. So Jiraiya, I take it you are going to observe Naruto tomorrow? Enko asked. Yeah, but unfortunately I have to leave right after it. I had word about another hideout belonging to Orochimaru that I need to check out as soon as possible. They continued to discuss all that is going on in the ninja world until they all headed off to bed. At Naruto's testing, Naruto was sweating and tired because he had just finished an all-out brawl with Jiraiya. Well, a brawl isn't the best way to put it. It was more like Naruto attempting to land a blow on Jiraiya and the Sannin standing on one place blocking every single move the young boy tried to land. Well, I am impressed, Naruto. You have grown well and have a great grasp on Taijutsu for only being 6, the Toad Hermit said. In reality, he was surprised by the amount of force the kid could put into his attacks. He seemed to be as powerful as someone twice his age. Thanks, Naruto said, happy for the praise. Naruto knew he wouldn't be able to do anything against such an experienced ninja, and getting praised by one was no small feat. Kakashi had told him. If you keep training at the level you have, you will be a force to be reckoned with. Now we will go to chakra control. With that said, Naruto performed the leaf, stick, tree climbing, and attempted the water walking exercises. The young blonde had improved, being able to stay on top of the water for 5 minutes before he lost concentration. I see the problem, you are not letting your chakra flow. Water is a fluid, so if you want to interact with it you must be fluid as well. Naruto nodded and put the old Toad Sage's advice to work. To both of their surprise, once Naruto put the new technique into action, he stood on top of the water without any problems. He just stood there, no concentration or anything. Well, that was easy, the young boy said. He was pretty happy and wanted to test it out some more, so he decided to take a few laps around and do some push-ups. Throughout this time, Jiraiya was flipping shit. This cannot be possible, it just can't, no one has that kind of chakra control. Is it possible that he has a water affinity? But his mother was a wind and his father a lightning, how could he have developed a water affinity? These were only a few of the thousands of thoughts racing through the pervert's head. But he was sure that Naruto was ready for the 2 training seals. Only a few people can handle them, and everyone who had these placed upon them became renowned ninja. Naruto, come here please. What's up, old man? Well, I believe you are ready to obtain the 2 seals that made men like Kakashi, myself, and your father great. Are you serious? There are seals to make you great? Well, not really, but it will aid in your training and you will become more powerful because of it. Really? Well, lay it on me. Okay, but I have to let you understand what they are, how to remove them, and some of the side effects of it. First off, I will be placing an advanced resistance that will slow your movements to 1/4 your baseline speed. This will force you improve your strength, speed, and power in order to be proficient in your ninja abilities. This seal is called Fuinjutsu, Kazuteku, seal technique, wind resistance. As the name implies, the air around you will cause major resistance, to the point where you can only travel at 1/4 your base speed. In order to release it, simply say the name of the technique, then release while holding the ram sign. But unlike normal seals, this one will not fade away once release. It will stay on you and you can reactivate it by saying the name, then activate while holding the ram seal. Now with the explanation out of the way, where would you like the seal to be placed? Well, two Sanzanbu tattoo looks really cool and seals look a lot like tattoos, right? So I guess on both of my shoulders. Okay, then let's get this started, Jiraiya said, forming hand seals to prepare for the seal. Once he finished the sealing sequence, he had little green flames on the tips of his index and middle fingers. He then reached out and made two diagonal lines appear on the young boy's right shoulder. Naruto was amazed by the skill level that the old hermit had. He had only heard of seals being able to be placed through paper and ink, or blood. His parents had told him that only true masters of the sealing art could perform seals with only hand signs and that those seals were extremely powerful. Okay, now Naruto tried to move. He did, and it took all his effort to move his arm up to shoulder level at his normal speed. You were not kidding when you said this would slow me down, but I couldn't imagine that it would slow me down this much. Naruto was truly shocked by what the seal was doing to him, but he also saw how fast he could become because of it. Thank you, Jiraiya-san. So what is this next seal? Well, this seal is called Fuinjutsu, Superito Bando, Seal Technique, Spirit Bind. This seal is very special where it restricts your chakra availability. It restricts it to the point that you can use it perfectly. Every time you use large amounts of chakra or use very technical forms of chakra, your chakra capacity grows. So this seal only allows you to use what you can perfectly. The rest of your chakra will continue to grow, but you will not have access to it unless you release the seal. If you train correctly, you will be a chakra control faster than your chakra capacity, allowing you access to more and more of your chakra until you have full control over all of it. The reason I have decided to put this one on you is that you have more chakra at this age than most elite Junin. For heaven's sake, you give Kakashi a run for his money in regards to chakra reserves. But there is also anther level to this seal that will awaken when you have control over a large portion of your chakra. This level will allow you to seal away as much chakra as you please, and you can call upon it at a later time. This does not mean you can store chakra and have a large supply to take form, but rather you will be putting blocks on your chakra. This will help mask how much chakra you have and allow you to surprise your enemies when you show just how much chakra you have. Wow, that sounds really cool. Will it limit me as much as this other seal does? It won't be as recognizable at first, but yes. You have a surprisingly large amount of chakra control, but you don't have enough to use most of your chakra. This means that you will grow tired quicker when training your chakra control and using jutsus. But if it will help me in the long run, then it is worth it. Jiraiya smiled, and though, just like Minato, you would be proud, Gaki. Once he finished his thought, he started forming seals. This time a purple flame appeared on his index, middle and ring fingers. He started to reach out to place them on Naruto's left shoulder and said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to say this will hurt." Naruto didn't have time to respond when Jiraiya's seal came in contact with his skin. He didn't scream, even though he wanted to, but just let out a grunt of pain. "Wow. You are an impressive kid. Your father screamed like a girl when I put that seal on him," the Toad Sage said with a grin. Naruto was about to grin back when a new pain greater than the first hit him, and he couldn't help but yell out in pain. "Oh, did I forget to say that it takes a little bit for it to really kick in, but don't worry, that was it." Naruto was pissed off at that comment and tried to hit the old fart, but forgot about the first seal and could barely move. "Now Naruto, don't be like that. In your state a snail could move faster than you," chuckled Jiraiya. "Oh well, it looks like I have a lot of training to do before I can do anything. Thank you for all of this," Naruto said, then moved to give the old man a hug but had difficulty taking a few steps. Jiraiya noticed what the brat wanted to do and walked over to him and gave him a hug. "Train hard, Gaki, and I will come and give you some personal lessons." This brought a huge smile to Naruto's face. Jiraiya then picked the boy up, put him on his shoulders and walked to the house. Jiraiya left about an hour afterward with Kakashi. Jiraiya was headed off to do more reconnaissance on Orochimaru, and Kakashi went to meet with his client about the S-rank mission. Enko stayed with Naruto to help his get used to his two new seals. Naruto kept looking at the one on his left arm, amazed because it had 3 different designs. First was a water droplet, the second was a bolt of lightning, and third was a swirling ball. Jiraiya was surprised that had happened and explained that the boy had an affinity for all 3. And because they were all the same shade, they were all primary affinities. Everyone was shocked except for Naruto, who hadn't really learned about it. The adults decided to wait and explain everything to him once he advanced in his abilities. A year has passed and Naruto has grown at a tremendous rate. He now has perfect chakra control equivalent to a mid-level Chunin. He now has the speed of a high-level Genin and has mastered 3 separate forms of Taijutsu. Naruto hasn't learned any ninjutsu during this time, mainly because they wanted to focus on all his other ninja skills first. Okay Naruto, Kakashi will be coming back from his mission today and I want you to set up as many traps as possible around the perimeter. Let's see if you have become a trap master, Anko said with a devious smile. This has been a game the family played that helped Naruto learn how to perfect trap setup and also helped keep the 2 adult ninja on their toes. Will do Ka-san, Naruto said excitedly. He has become proficient in this skill. Both parents have concluded that he has surpassed them in this particular department. It was rare day that the one coming in didn't get hit by at least 2 of Naruto's devious traps. Well Kakashi, it looks like it is time for Naruto to start on his ninjutsu training. I am looking forward to seeing how our son does in this exercise, Anko thought. 2 hours later Ka-san, I'm done, Naruto said wearing the same evil grin his stepmom wore before something evil was about to happen. Anko was proud of her son for this and beamed at him. Well, that went faster than I thought, so I guess we get to move on to the next step in your field training, cooking. Now go cook mama something real nice, Anko said, giving her son a look that promised pain if he didn't do well. Naruto nodded quickly and went to the kitchen. Wow, Ka-san can be really scary. No wonder Kakashi doesn't want her to find his library, he thought. When he got to the kitchen he pulled out the ingredients to make ramen until he heard his mother's voice flow through the air. And don't even think about making ramen or else you will be work on your poison tolerance sooner than planned. He quickly put it all back and got ingredients to make a beef stew. Back with Anko, I bet that little Gaki is just now putting back everything to make ramen, Anko snickered. She then decided to work on her new ninjutsu while Naruto was cooking. She headed over to a small arena-like area they made about 100 meters away from the lake. By them it really meant Naruto is training. This had become the family's training area. When Anko reached training field she decided to try out her idea for a new ninjutsu. She has a strong fire affinity and earth is her secondary and she wanted a good fire jutsu. She got the idea after seeing a Nook ninja form Mist perform a water gauntlet jutsu that could reach out and extend his reach every time he lashed out. Well, I'm not about to start catching myself on fire, that would be too dangerous. Well, good thing I brought this, she said, pulling out a coin. The thought process was that the heat would melt the coin if it affected it but would leave the coin whole and at the same temp if she performed this correctly. She set the coin on the ground and started channeling her fire chakra into the coin. Then fire involved the coin and it proceeded to melt. She cooled the melted metal with a simple water jutsu and used an earth jutsu to surround the melted metal and reshape it into a small ball. She continued this process for the next half hour. Naruto brought out some stew for her and she was glad she asked him to cook. He was excellent at the job, and he pretty much had a natural talent for it. He thanked her adopted son and after eating sent him to meditate on the lake for a half hour and she continued to work on her new jutsu idea. About 15 minutes after Anko sent Naruto to meditate a large boom could be heard. She looked over at her son with a surprised look on her face and beamed back and said, "Looks like he activated my jam cannon." "A what? Jam cannon?" "I made some gunk out of several material I found out in the forest and placed it into a makeshift cannon that would fire if he activated a pressure plate I placed." He did not mention that he had actually placed several of these things throughout the area. "That is an excellent idea. It would warn us if someone was approaching and would mess with their psyche. I like it," Anko exclaimed with a more evil look than usual, "if that even seems possible." "You're right. I never thought about that. I just thought it would be funny to see Toussaint covered in gunk," Naruto said in an exited voice, not noticing his very large explosion not too far away. "How big are those cannons, Naruto?" "Well, they have a good 5-foot blasting radius, so they are a good size." "You have a trap that is hard to detect that had a 5-foot blast radius, that is amazing." "Really? Thanks," Naruto beamed at his mother's praise. "Yeah, you will have to show me how to make one of those after Kakashi gets back." "No problem, Ka-san." Just then another more intense explosion occurred and the as before spoken Nook Nin came flying over the clearing and landed in a heap next to his family. "Okay, whose idea was it to rig the entire forest with all those stupid launchers?" Kakashi explained, covered in dirt, mud, honey, and something that looked suspiciously like deer shit. With that being said, both the others couldn't stop laughing their asses off. Anko was actually rolling on the ground at the sight of her husband, the famous copycat ninja, falling for traps set up by a 7-year-old. Naruto was just laughing seeing what sort of havoc he had done on his father. And the infamous Kakashi no Sharingan just sat there glaring at his two precious people. Well, if you're going to act this way, Anko, I'm not going to help you with that new fire jutsu, and Naruto, I was planning on starting you on jutsu training, but because of this I think you will just have to wait another couple of months. With that being said, both of the pranksters stopped laughing immediately. But Kakashi-kun, you promised, Anko chided, hitting him with puppy dog eyes. Nope, not going to work this time, Kakashi dead-pained. To-san, I have been training so hard and this wasn't my idea, it was all Ka-san's, Naruto said, trying to use the same trick that he usually used on his mother. But this time it backfired. Oh Naruto, you don't intend to blame your mother with this now, do you? Anko said in her sweetest voice that everyone in the Hitaki family knew spelt utter destruction. Yua. OOFSU RSE, not Ka-san. Naruto stuttered, then dove at Kakashi's feet. To-san, it was all my fault, IAMSOOSORI, please forgive me, this has no thing to do with my beautiful Ka-san. Naruto spouted off at 100 miles an hour. Kakashi just looked at his wife and sweat dropped. That's what I thought you said, squirt, Anko whispered in her son's ear, making him jump in the air about 10 feet. While both parents had a laugh at their child's expense, the young boy decided to bring the issue of working on jutsus back up. So To-san, will you start training me to use jutsu? Well honey, you might as well, seeing that he did pass the test, Anko said, flashing a smile to her husband. I guess you are right, but if you two ever do that to me again I will stop training you, Kakashi points at Naruto, and will cut you, turning his attention to Anko. Off from your favorite snake, Kakashi threatened. Naruto then nodded fervently so that they could hurry up and work on jutsu, while Anko sat there with a small blush and a look of disappointment. Anko then leans and whispers into Kakashi's ear, you know that would be just as much of a punishment for me as for you. The scarecrow then realizes the truth of her words and gave a sign acknowledging his defeat. Well Naruto, let's get started on your training. Meet me at the training pit in 5 minutes, I will be there after I get this gunk off of me, Kakashi said to Naruto. At the pit, okay, so Naruto, you have extremely good chakra control, so learning the basics will be a walk in the park. I am very glad that Jiraiya put that seal on you. So we will be working on what the academies call the basic 3. Henge, Kawarimi, and Bunshin. Since your chakra seal allows you to only use mid-level Chunin jutsu, but the seals allows you to endlessly refuel it with your reserves, we will be able to go through this rather quickly. Sweet, so do I get to learn other jutsus after this? Yep, but we will not start on a new jutsu unless you have fully mastered every level of the Academy 3. What do you mean by that? Well, for example, for the henge you can just cast shadow over yourself, or you can make it an actual manifestation. More simply, the shadow can't grab things, also it isn't solid. Pretty much it is just for looks, but the manifestation will be able to and hold on to things and have an actual feel to it. Also, it can act like a type of shield, taking a maximum of 1 hit. The Kawarimi is much simpler since it is just a simple substitution, but the higher level is the Shunshin and the highest being the Hiraishin, this one being out of our reach. And finally the Bunshin. The first stage is to cast an illusion that has no mass and is just as a distraction. Then there are the elemental Bunshin that hold the chakra nature of the user, such as Myre Bunshin, or the more common and simpler Mizu and Suchi Bunshin, and the most chakra retentive Bunshin, the Cage Bunshin. You easily have the chakra capacity to perform it but not the control. But if you can master the first 2, then you should have the control to perform the Cage Bunshin and your training will skyrocket. Why would learning the Cage Bunshin help me in my training? It's not like it can make a copy of me that I absorb its memories once it disperses, Naruto said sarcastically. Actually, that is exactly what it can do. Neither your mother or myself have the reserves you do, and you are only 7. Yet because of your reserves you can create 100 of these clones. The drawbacks of this technique are if you summon too many and they all disperse at once. This would flood your brain with all their memories and you would be incapacitated. Wow, that sounds awesome. Yeah, it kinda is, isn't it? And with that being said, the two started on Naruto's basic training. Several months later, okay Naruto, now let's put what you have learned to the test, Kakashi said, taking it to jutsu form. Naruto had mastered the full henge and had learned the Shunshin as well as the Bunshin. Kakashi had decided that he would see the progress his son has made in a head-to-head battle. Kakashi had decided that if Naruto proves his mettle, then the next step in his shinobi training would occur: elemental chakra. Kakashi was just thinking how much his son had grown when he noticed that his son hadn't moved. Then he noticed the grin. "Oh shit," was all he had time to think before his instincts kicked in and he blocked a blow from Naruto. Naruto had made a clone and shunshined behind his father. How did I not sense the chakra spike form the shunshin? Kakashi thought, blocking a flurry of blows his son was releasing. Just then Kakashi heard a click and a small explosion of what could only be explained as gunk flew from 3 different directions at the copycat ninja. What the hell? When did he have time to set up traps? That was all Kakashi could think before he had to shunshin across the pit. Unfortunately for Kakashi, Naruto had booby-trapped the entire area in preparation for today. "Hey two-san, I wouldn't." "Never mind," Naruto shouted, seeing that his father had activated another trap. The young blonde just sat there and laughed until Kakashi had enough of it and Kawarami'd with him. All of a sudden the tables were turned and Naruto was running away from his own traps and Kakashi was laughing his ass off. "That's what you get, you little brat. Oh yeah." And just then Naruto substituted with a small pile of rocks and performed a jutsu that his father had used on him during their training. Hitaki's secret jutsu. 1,000 Years of Death. And with that Naruto shoved his fingers up Kakashi's ass while forcing some chakra into it for good measure. Kakashi flew into the air and landed with a thump right on another trap that just so happened to be a jam cannon. With a good sounding explosion and a rather dirty Kakashi, Naruto had proved his worth and was ready to learn elemental chakra control. After Kakashi recovered, "Well, you definitely showed that you were ready. Now it is time that I showed you how shinobi make themselves unique," Kakashi said, and with that he stood back, started a few seals and lightened round his right hand. All Naruto could do was stare in awe at the ability his father was showing. Now this technique is called the Chidori. In order to do this, one must be able to harness lightning chakra and force it into their hand to the point that it is visible. This is my first original jutsu and is only the first form of this technique. The second is called the Reikiri and it requires more chakra and more control. It got its name after I split a lightning bolt in half using this technique. Now Naruto just sat there with a stupid look on his face in complete and total disbelief. "No way, my two-san can cut a lightning bolt in half. He is the coolest," the little blonde thought. He then asked, "Will you teach it to me?" "Well, of course I will. What kind of father would I be if I didn't hand down my techniques to my son?" "But you are not ready for it quite yet. First we have to get you in tuned with your elements." When he finished saying this, he pulled out a piece of paper. This is called chakra paper. When you push some of your chakra into it, we can see what kind of affinities you have. The seal already shows that you have 3 at such a young age, but this will help us see which one is the strongest. Kakashi then hands the paper over to his son, wondering what element will come up first. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. Naruto held the paper in between his thumb and index finger, but before he did he asked, "So what exactly is going to happen when I start pumping chakra into this thing?" "Well, we know that your natural affinities are water, lightning, and wind, so if it crumples first then you possess a strong lightning affinity, if it splits down the middle then it is wind, and if it gets all soggy then water." Naruto nodded in confirmation that he understood and started pumping his chakra into the piece of paper. Then the unthinkable happened. Instead of one thing happening, all 3 of the different signs happened at once. Naruto stared down at the now wet, crumpled 2 pieces of paper and asked his father, "Is that supposed to happen?" Now Kakashi just stared in utter confusion. He had only heard of 2 people having this ability, and it wasn't the elemental combination that Naruto had. These people were the 2nd and 3rd Tsuchikage, and the elements combined were earth, wind, and fire, not lightning, wind, and water. Could it be that Naruto had developed a Kekkei Genkei? Could something have happened when the fox was sealed within Naruto that made this happen? Well, I guess there is nothing I can do about it but train him the best I can. Unfortunately, I only have earth, fire, and lightning affinities, but thankfully my strongest is lightning. I guess I will just start him on that, get him used to it, then we can start moving around and try to find him a water and a wind teacher. This is going to be so difficult. Why couldn't he just have one main affinity like normal people? But this could actually make him more powerful. These were just some of the thoughts flying through his head while Naruto just stared at his father waiting for an answer. Two-san, are you okay?" Naruto asked nervously, afraid that he did something bad. "Sorry son, I was just a little freaked out, that is all." Seeing the look on his son's face after his response made him hurriedly say, "But don't worry, this actually means you have a unique and rather powerful ability." After hearing this, Naruto's eyes lit up. The reason being that you are one of only 2 people in the history of the world to manipulate 3 separate elements in perfect balance. Naruto just looked dumbfounded and simply stared at Kakashi. The Scarecrow then gave an explanation of what he meant and a brief history about the others who had the same ability. "Wow, so does that mean I can make some sort of super killer jutsu like those cages?" asked Naruto with wide eyes. "I guess it is possible, but remember that you have a different element set and so you won't be able to use the dust release," replied Kakashi. "But for now let's work on your lightning manipulation. That is my personal affinity and I know quite a bit about it." And with that being said, they started to work on lightning manipulation. 3 months later, Naruto had his birthday and is now a proud 8-year-old who is able to use several D-ranked lightning jutsus and 3 C-ranked. He is also able to channel lightning chakra into his weapons and make a Rebunction. Currently he is working on another C-ranked jutsu that his father had shown him. "Okay, so the point of this is to force chakra into my fingertip. Then I have to extend the lightning out 2 feet and make it act like a whip," Naruto said, more so to himself than to anyone around him. "This is pretty much like the Raiko lightning bolt, but it is used in a whip-like motion and stays connected to me." Naruto then felt the feeling of electricity go through his chakra coils in a familiar way and started forming the 2-foot-long line of electricity. Once he got to 1 foot, the line started to move and become unstable. Naruto focused on it more and managed to stabilize it. He decided that he should just try and start moving it while he had less to manipulate, so he started to make it lean to the left. He managed to succeed, pushed it too far and electrocuted himself. He was now lying on the ground twitching. Kakashi was out on a mission and Anko was out running arenas, so Naruto was stuck, electrocuted, and alone. So he just sat there waiting for the effects to wear off. But then he heard laughter. It was feminine but loud and evil sounding, like Anko's, more soft and giggly. He hadn't seen too many other people besides his parents, Jiraiya, and a nice old lady who sometimes came over with freshly baked cookies and fun stories. He was curious who this laughter was coming from, but still feeling the electricity coursing through his body, he couldn't get up to investigate. Irritated that he couldn't move, he just sat there and pouted. But then he could hear the sound of footsteps coming towards him and was thankful that someone was coming to help him out. Once a shadow crossed his face, he looked up to see a little girl who seemed around the same age as him. She giggled again, seeing that he was just lying there. She then asked, "What are you doing laying down, silly?" That irritated our young blonde and he retorted, "Well, I was just shocked with a couple 100 bolts of electricity. What else do you think I would be doing?" To that she just giggled, then quick as could be brought a senbon to his throat. She then said in a much too serious of a tone to be coming out of a child's mouth, "So tell me, where are your adopted parents? Zabuza-sama wishes to meet with them." Naruto sat there with the senbon needle at his throat, just staring at the girl who had just asked the location of his parents. His body couldn't move due to the lightning jutsu that had backfired on him just before his life had been threatened. Why was I not observing my surroundings? The Naruto thought, frustrated that he was put in this predicament. I don't know where they went, but they may be here any time, and they are both very dangerous shinobi. I don't think you want to be here when they arrive, he said, trying to intimidate this mystery girl. Oh, I'm not worried at all. Zabuza-sama is watching in case that happens. He is quite aware of your parents' prowess. We actually have a request for them that we would like to have them agree to. But we are, how to put it, not very welcomed around others. So we needed to make sure they wouldn't kill us right when we arrived. I doubt that they would attack you on sight, well, unless you were working for the Demon Mist guy the first overheard them talking about. Every Nook Nin is out for his head and wants him gone. Apparently he is a major threat to everyone, not just his home. Well, you understand why we had to prevent that from happening then. Naruto then visibly paled in realization of what this girl was saying. So you, the Demon of the Mist, is here and wants to talk to my parents, Naruto said. It wasn't a question. Yes, and we wish to ask for their aid. If they don't comply, we will simply leave you alone. Naruto visibly relaxed until he heard the last part, and dead. Naruto started to feel his body recover from the effects of his misshaped jutsu. I am so glad that the Kyuubi gives me a heightened healing factor. So you're saying that you want to ask for our aid, but if we refuse then you are going to kill us? She nodded. So you are giving us an ultimatum? Again she nodded. Okay, well, come closer and I will tell you my answer. She did so still under the assumption that he was incapacitated by that electrical shock, which would be a major mistake. When she was about an inch away from his face, he shoved the needle away from him, causing a small cut to appear on his throat. He then head-butted her and she fell over backwards. Naruto then jumped up and tried to gain the upper hand when she was on the ground. Unfortunately, by that time the girl was already on her feet and a good 5 meters away from him. They both stared at each other until Naruto charged forward. He started channeling chakra into his limbs to increase his speed and power and drew his arm back for a punch. The girl crossed her arms and blocked his attack. She must have great chakra control to have blocked that attack, thought Naruto, dodging a leg sweep. He then rushed forward and dodged another kick aimed at his legs. He jumped, twisted, and lashed out for her head. She didn't attempt to block, instead the ducked and brought a fist up in an uppercut. The hit connected and Naruto went flying. Damn, she packs a punch, he thought, standing back up and brushing off the blood that was trickling down his chin. He didn't have much time to think because several needles came flying at him. He dove to the side, barely missing the projectiles. He reached into his kunai pocket and realized how few he had on his person. What the hell, I only have 5 left. Why did I practice with these things earlier? Naruto drew out one and griped it in his right hand while taking a defensive stance. The two deadly children stared at each other for a moment. A single dandelion seed came floating down to earth, and once it touched the ground they too started making hand seals. The young girl created some ice senbons and threw them at Naruto. He was still in the middle of his seals when the projectiles entered his arms, legs, and throat. Seeing this, she relaxed and walked over to the boy, but before she could take 3 steps she felt a presence behind her. She whirled around and found Naruto standing there with a kunai at her throat. He smiled and brought his hand up. There was a single line of pure electricity standing on the tip of his index finger. He poked her on the temple and she collapsed and started to tremble because of the amount of electricity coursing through her body. Naruto then walked over to her and was about to pick her up when he heard a deep voice whisper in his ear, "Nice job, but not good enough." Before the blonde could react, he fell unconscious. With Anko was in the small town not too far away from their home. She had a few groceries and some toiletries in bags and was about to head into the library. Before she entered the building, she sees her husband looking at a strange book. The book was all black leather with the simple kanji for element on the front. She walks over to him and wraps her arms around his back and whispers, "What do you have there, Kakashi-kun?" Without turning his head, he responds, "Well, this is the strangest book I have ever seen. And what is even more surprising is that it is here." Anko cocked her head and asked, "What are you talking about?" Sari was lost in thought. Kakashi said, turning around to look his wife in the eyes, "Well, simply, this is one of only 3 books of its kind. One is in Kumo, the other in Konoha, and the final, surprisingly, is here. What makes this such a special book, and why are you so surprised to find it here? This town is full of weird stuff." In a hushed tone he explained, "To put it simple, this worth more than the entire library of Konoha, Kumo, and Kiri put together." This made Anko's eye widen to the point that Kakashi was afraid that her eyes would roll out. This book responds to chakra and shows all the major jutsus for the particular affinities the possessor has. To put it simply, since I have a lightning affinity, it will be chock full of lighting jutsus, but because you are mostly a fire affinity, it will show you a ton of fire jutsus. This book is the reason why Kumo and Konoha are so powerful. Now do you see why I am so surprised that the 3rd and final copy is here of all places?" Anko was dumbfounded at his explanation. She had no idea that there were books like this in existence. If this is such a powerful book, then how come nobody had found this book beforehand? Who knows, maybe someone stole it and hid it here, died and never could retrieve it. "We are the only ninja within hundreds of miles of this town," he explained. They walked to the counter and asked for the cost of the book. When they asked, they were flabbergasted by what he asked. "Well, to tell you the truth, that book was here when my grandfather was working this shop. No one could open it or read what was in it. To tell you the truth, I forgot it was even in here," he chuckled. "Well, how about this? Because you guys are always helping us out, just take it." Both ninja just stared at the man and he simply smiled and went over to help another customer find a book. Kakashi and Anko walked out of the store and back home in silence, still stunned that they now had a book of legends and they got it for free. They both silently swore to help out that man for the rest of his life and make sure that he lived a very comfortable lifestyle. Halfway home they started to talk about what has happened since Kakashi had left. Kakashi had taken up a guarding mission and had had to fight off a group of bandits, nothing difficult for the infamous Sharingan no Kakashi. Anko had been helping Naruto train with creating hallucinogenic and learning how to coat weapons with other poisons so that they wouldn't smear or rub off in his kunai pouch. She had also been working on her flame shield while watching Naruto perfect his Raibo, Lighting Road, and his current Reike, Lightning Whip. When they got home they felt two strange chakra signatures in Naruto. Naruto's and one of the foreign signatures were faint, but they were a bit worried about the other. It was extremely powerful and seemed to be agitated. Anko looked over at Kakashi. He responded in a hushed voice, "I can smell Naruto. One smells of ice and the other of blood and mist. I hope the later isn't who I think it is, but I have no idea who the other one is." Anko knew what Kakashi was talking about and was worried as well. They had been discussing Zabuza before Kakashi had left and were worried what he might try to do after his failed assassination of the Mizukage. They then drew out their respected weapons, preparing to attack and protect their son. Kakashi drew out his katana that he had obtained when Naruto was about 3 and Anko pulled out 9 kakudis. Rings that have spikes on them that generally have a poisonous coating. Think bronze knuckles, but individual for each finger and has several poison-covered spikes on them. That she had found on a mission when Naruto was about 6. The two looked at each other and nodded, vanishing to the surrounding trees. Back with Naruto, Naruto was just coming to, and the first thing he realized was that he was tied up. He opened his eyes and noticed that he was tied to a tree and that a tall man with bandages over his mouth and neck. He didn't wear a shirt and had blue-gray pants with overall attachments. He had cargo Ritz warmers and beside him was a huge sword. Naruto realized that the sword was bigger than him and it was Saint Zabuza was looking down at the girl from earlier, just simply watching over her like a concerned parent. He then noticed that Naruto was awake. "Damn kid, you recover fast. I hit you hard enough to knock you out for at least 2 days, yet you're awake in less than 2 hours. Naruto wasn't sure what to do, so he decided to just talk with the man in hopes that he wouldn't get killed. "Yeah, my parents say that I have a very powerful healing factor. It came from my mother," he lied. If his parents taught him anything, it was not to tell strangers about his furry problem. "Really? Well, that is interesting," the tall, imposing figure said. "How is?" Naruto trailed off, realizing that he never found out the girl's name. "Her name is Haku and mine is Zabuza." Slightly surprised that the man was giving information out freely, he responded in kind. "My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Hitaki Naruto." "Wow, you got a lot of names now, don't you, kid?" Zabuza said with a little chuckle. Naruto's face darkened and said, "My mother was an Uzumaki and she died during childbirth. My father was Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, who died expelling the Kyuubi. Kakashi and Anko have raised me and deserted their village because I was to be executed." Zabuza's face darkened when he heard this. He fully understood what the child must feel, rejected and wanted dead by his home village. He did raise Haku. Just then Zabuza flashed and was gone. Not an instant after he did, several kunai were stuck in the ground where he once was. "Naruto, are you okay?" A voice that sounded a lot like Kakashi asked. "Yeah, just tied up and I have a slight headache, but besides that I'm good. Thank Kami, but now I'm going to tear this bastard open for hurting my baby," Anko's voice stated. After that was said there was just silence. Naruto sat tied to a tree looking at Haku and no sound came from any of the 3 adult shinobi. "I hope this ends well. I want to meet my parents, but not this soon," Naruto thought. Then he heard Zabuza's voice, dark and menacing, roll over the small clearing. "Kakashi-san. Anko-san, I wish to just talk with you. I promise not to hurt either of you nor your son. Please, this is maybe very beneficial to all of us." There was nothing but silence for a good 5 minutes. Then Kakashi's voice came out, "Okay, but you have to throw your sword over to the opposite side of the clearing from Naruto, then we will meet at his tree." Kakashi didn't really think that it would happen. He believed that Zabuza would just refuse and start the fight. But he was very confused when he saw the giant sword go flying and sticking into a tree on the opposite side of Naruto. Zabuza then appeared next to his son and sat down on a not-so-distant stump, completely unarmed. Kakashi looked at Anko and they both cautiously walked into the clearing and started to head over to their fellow Nook Nin. "So asshole, what do you want?" Anko stated flatly with a hint of anger. She was still rather pissed that her child, adopted or not, was hurt and she wanted blood in payment. I am going to be rather frank here, Zabuza said. I wish to join you. Kakashi and Anko's jaws simply fell to the ground, their arms held loosely by their sides, and their eyes wide open in shock. This was not the request that they would have expected from this formidable ninja. I know my track record, but I just want a safe place for my daughter and I don't want to have her placed in constant danger. You two have been living in relative peace and have been tracked down by Konoha several times, but you always come out on top. I would not be asking if it weren't for her. He tilts his head towards a small girl around 3 lying down on the ground in front of Naruto. Kakashi looked at him with cold eyes. This is not the Momochi Zabuza he had heard of. This man was supposed to be a ruthless killer with no regard to anyone but himself and would use anybody else to serve his purpose. Was that what he was trying to do now? Was he trying to gain their trust by telling them he wanted to protect this girl? This girl who was conveniently knocked out and could not speak for herself. Before he could ask any questions, Naruto asked on of his own, "You have a daughter. Where is your wife, and how old is she?" Zabuza's face became blank, as though remembering the past. Then he said, "She is a lot like you, Naruto." Our blonde just looked at him with a "what the hell are you talking about" face, and Zabuza continued. "I have to give you some background information so that you understand what happened. Back in Kiri, our Mizukage has started a blood purge." Naruto just looked confused, but Kakashi and Anko had looks of shock on their faces. "He is trying to eradicate everyone who has a Kekkei Genkai. This has been going on for over a decade now, and there is now an ingrained fear of people who possess a Kekkei Genkai. Haku's mother possessed one of our more powerful ones. She was part of the Yuki clan and therefore had Hayatan, Ice released. Haku's mother had hidden her power throughout this time and was happily married and had a child, Haku. They lived in relative peace and they were happy until Haku's Hayatan ability awakened. She ran up to her mother and told her she had a neat trick. Haku then made water float out of a small pond they had and it froze into a sphere of ice. Her mother was terrified and told her never to do this again. Unfortunately, her father had witnessed what happened. He ran into the village and gathered all the other men. They tied both of them up and Haku's father ran through her mother with a sword. In grief, Haku used her new power to kill everyone inside. I came upon the site when I heard a scream, then a large explosion. I went over to see what was going on. To my surprise, there was what seemed to be a fortress made out of ice spikes and a small girl crying with blood everywhere. I went over to her, she was just 3 at the time, and tried to comfort her. I thought that she would be a perfect weapon against the Mizukage the next time I was prepared to attack again. I took her, raised her, and trained her to kill, but she grew on me and I have grown to see her as my daughter. She still calls me Zabuza-sama, but I hope one day she can call me Tusan." Zabuza finished with a look of happiness when he said that last word. Kakashi and Anko looked sad at the story but also surprised that the infamous devil of the mist had a soft side. The man who slaughtered his entire genin class sat there, in front of them, with a glassy stare, thinking about a time when his daughter would call him father. Things just keep getting weirder. "I am sorry to hear that," Kakashi said in a somber tone, knowing full well what it was like to raise a child not your own and seeing the hardships that they had endured. "But I have to ask, do you intend on recruiting us in your ambition to take out the Mizukage?" Kakashi asked in a very stern voice. Zabuza looked at him with what seemed to be permanently on his face, a scowl, and said, "I would like you to, but I will not force you. My primary mission right now is to keep my daughter safe. I had heard that you are the kindest Nook Nins and actually the only one that is a family that has survived. So I wished to come and ask to join you and hopefully help you out. I could take up missions and train you son in Kenjutsu. And if he forms a secondary element that is water, I could help him with that as well." Kakashi looked at Anko and they both agreed to do one thing first. Kakashi answered, "Okay, but we have one condition." While saying this, he pulls out a large scroll and opens it up. Inside are at least 20 hand prints made out in blood in the center of a seal. To Zabuza this looked like a summoning contract and he asked, "Are you trying to force me into a contract?" Kakashi responded, "No, this is a special blood seal. Once you make this you cannot harm any of my family. Jiraiya of the Sannin made this and it is the reason that we are alive today." Zabuza looked stunned. He had never. "If I agree to this, would you include me and Haku into the seal?" Kakashi gave it some thought and whispered something to Anko. He nodded and said, "If you prove that you are worth it, then yes, we will include you in the seal." To Kakashi's surprised, Zabuza actually smiled. Not an evil "I am going to kill you" smile, but a genuine smile. Well, at least it looked like it because, like Kakashi, Zabuza had his lower face covered. Kakashi looked at Anko and they smiled a little too. They just hoped that this would become a blessing and not a curse. With a nod to Zabuza, he walked over to Naruto and cut him loose. Zabuza went and picked up Haku. Anko started to lead the two men and two children to the house when Kakashi turned to Zabuza and said, "Oh yeah, you know how you said you would train Naruto if he had a water affinity?" Zabuza looked at Kakashi with a questioning look and nodded his head. "Well, it just so turns out that he has one." Zabuza looked surprised. "So you're telling me he can use lightning jutsu that well at such a young age but had an affinity in water?" Zabuza was stunned and amazed. This kid must be something else. "Well, yes, but he also has a lighting affinity." "What? You're saying he has two affinities at his age? Does he have a Kekkei Genkai?" "I am not sure, but no, he doesn't have two affinities, he has three: water, wind, and lighting." Zabuza stared at Kakashi in complete shock. He was amazed, and though he was lucky to find a person with two elemental affinities such as Haku, but meeting someone with three was unheard of. His dumbfounded look just made the Hitaki family chuckle. When they got back to the house, it was around dinner time, so Zabuza went and laid Haku down on a couch, then sat at the dinner table. He was surprised when Naruto walked into the kitchen and the two adults came in, sat down. After asking about it, Kakashi explained that they each took turns cooking dinner, and now that Haku and Zabuza were staying with them, they would have to help cook as well. They started talking about their pasts and future plans. Zabuza said he still wanted to kill the Mizukage but was planning on doing it when he had the funds for a large military and hopefully obtained the aid of several experienced shinobi. Naruto finished dinner and brought it out. The smell of food woke Haku and she came in after jumping up and nearly killing everyone and being soothed down by Zabuza joined them for dinner. The group started to laugh, albeit they were a bit shaken up, and Haku blushed and apologized repeatedly. Anko told them that they had only one extra room, so someone would have to sleep on the couch until they expanded the house. The two newcomers started to say that they would be fine and would just camp outside because they didn't want to be an inconvenience, but got shouted down. Kakashi told them that all three of them could create shadow clones and that they could build another story to the house in less than a day, but that they would have to help. Zabuza and Haku agreed, and to everyone's surprise Haku said she would take the couch. Zabuza tried to give her the bed, but Haku gave him a look and Zabuza visibly paled. The Hitaki family all thought one thing. Whipped Naruto told Haku to take his bed and that he would sleep on the couch. The two argued, but Naruto's stubbornness outweighed Haku's and she finally caved. They all went to bed, but not before Zabuza said that he would be helping with Naruto's training. And with that the house went to sleep, Haku and Zabuza sleeping soundly for the first time in years. The next day Haku woke up at dawn thinking she was the first one up. She always was an early riser. She had a miniature heart attack when she woke up, forgetting where she was, but quickly calmed down when the memories came back to her. Haku crept downstairs as quietly as she could, not wanting to wake anyone. She looked over to the couch where the young boy, who had given her his bed, had slept, but he was nowhere to be seen. She walked outside and was surprised to see that him outside. But he wasn't alone. There were two copies of him and they were fighting. Two of the Narutos were trying to land blows on the third, but were failing. The third was duking and weaving through them, blocking when necessary. It was interesting watching his movements. His defensive movements were very fluid, dodging more than blocking but never straying too far away. His offensive maneuvers were oriented around heavy, powerful blows that could be retracted quickly. They flowed but looked as though they were a combination of two separate techniques. While she watched, Naruto was busy fighting with his two shadow clones. He had been doing this form of training ever since he learned the Kagebunshin. At first he would only spar with one clone so that he could work on his taijutsu, but when he became apt enough to dispel within 2 minutes of their spar, he promptly made a second. Because of this, his taijutsu could easily fight of any genin and could hold his own against even mid-level chunin. Naruto then sensed Haku's presence and decided to end his spar quickly. So he brought up his lighting chakra and formed what looked like senbon needles on all 10 of his fingers. He then jumped in the air and to Haku's surprise launched then towards the clones, and they puffed away in a cloud of smoke. Haku lost sight of Naruto and looked wildly around for him until she felt a surge of chakra behind her. She whipped around only to see Naruto leaning against the wall of the house looking at Haku. "What are you doing up so early?" she asked. "I'm always up at this time. It is the best time to get in my warm-up," the blonde responded. Then asked, "What are you doing up? I would have thought after getting electrocuted you would have wanted to rest more." Haku blushed, remembering how easily he defeated her. She looked away so that he would see her blushing and said, "I have always woken up early, it comes with being on the run and hunted every day." Naruto then looked down in embarrassment and promptly apologized for his statement. Haku simply smiled and waved it off. "Well, since you are up so early, would you like to have a quick spar? A real person is a lot harder to fight than a simple clone." Haku looked surprised for a second, then consented, and Naruto lead her out to the pit. They both agreed that they would start off with a taijutsu-only battle, then later start to incorporate weapons, then finally jutsu. They both took up their stances, waiting for the other to make a move. Then Naruto charged forward and started to throw some chakra-induced punches. Haku dodged and thanked Kami that she didn't attempt to block it because there were cracks and a slight depression where she had just been. She then made her move, rushing forward, then to the side, aiming a kick at Naruto's exposed side. He moved quickly, dodging the attack and lashing out with a kick of his own that was aimed for her feet. She jumped up and did a flip, then brought her heel down, aiming for to his back. He barely dodged in time by diving to the side. Haku landed gracefully, creating a larger indentation and more cracks than Naruto's punch. His sweat dropped and made a mental note not to piss her off. They took their stances again and nodded to each other. Naruto's hand went shooting into his kunai pouch while Haku already had a cluster of senbon in her hands. She threw them at Naruto with pinpoint accuracy, forcing the boy to jump up to avoid the attack. While in the air, he threw one kunai and formed some hand signs, shouting Taiju Kagekunai no Jutsu. With a cloud of smoke, 100 kunai came flying at the unsuspecting girl. She froze and Naruto yelled at her to get moved, but then a large cluster of kunai stuck into her. Naruto yelled and started running towards her, but before he got 3 feet he felt something sharp at the base of his skull. He froze, then heard a whisper from behind him, "That wasn't very nice, you cheated." Recognizing Haku's voice, he jumped forward. He was so happy to see that Haku was fine, but then wondered what he hit. He turned to see a block of ice with a dozen kunai lodged inside. He then sweat dropped and promptly fell on his hands and knees, begging for forgiveness. Haku picked Naruto up, telling him not to worry about it. They both smiled and decided that they had done enough sparring for a while. They went inside and Naruto told Haku that he would cook everyone up some breakfast. She nodded and went to Naruto's room to clean up. With Kakashi had been up at the crack of dawn and was watching Naruto spar with his clones. "He is getting quite good fusing Anko and my taijutsu forms. I am impressed." He sat on the roof enjoying the early morning and looked down when he smelled the distinct smell of ozone that came form using lightning jutsu. He watched as Naruto formed the Reame no Jutsu, lightning rain. The clones disappeared in a puff of smoke and he watched as his son disappeared in a shunshin. Curious to where he went, he dropped down from the roof and heard Naruto and Haku talking. He then followed the two to the pit and sat in a tree to watch them. He then felt a chakra pulse next to him and looked to his right. There Zabuza sat looking at the two kids. "Morning," Zabuza said in a gruff voice, still sounding sleepy. Kakashi nodded in acknowledgement. They both sat there watching the two kids fight and commenting on how they performed. Zabuza was impressed with the amount of force that the kid could put behind his hits, and Kakashi was impressed with the quickness Haku had. When Naruto performed the Kagekunai no Jutsu, Kakashi almost shunshined in to help Haku, seeing her freeze, but Zabuza stuck his arm out to stop him. Kakashi then saw that the Haku that got struck by the kunai was actually just ice that took the form of Haku. He then gave Zabuza an appraised look for teaching his daughter such an impressive move at such a young age. They both laughed at how Naruto reacted once he saw that Haku was all right and watched them as they went inside. "Well, our kids had a little scrimmage. Would you like to have a little fun? I believe Naruto is cooking everyone some breakfast now," Kakashi said. "Sounds like fun. I haven't had sparring match with someone in ages." They both shunshined into the pit and took stances opposing each other. They stared into each other's eyes and waited for something to happen. A breeze came, bringing a small leaf along with it. Once it landed, both ninja pulled out their weapons and charged. They performed a flurry of blows that could barely be seen. They kept up their deadly dance for a couple of seconds longer until they jumped back. They looked at each other and lunged back at each other. This time Zabuza used his water affinity to increase his dexterity while Kakashi used his lighting affinity to increase his speed. Now not only were their strikes a blur but also their bodies. You could only see flashes where their swords struck and a faint outline of them while in movement. It was an impressive sight to see two elite Junin ninja spar. Then Brock apart slightly out of breath up with smiles on bother their faces. They walked up to each other and shook hands and walked towards the front door ready for some breakfast. Anko during this time Anko was fast asleep and didn't show any signs of waking up. She then heard the door open and Kakashi walked in covered in dust and a little ruffled up. "Well, hello there sexy," Anko said with a wicked grin on her face. "Looks like someone was getting acquainted with our new friends." Kakashi walked over to his wife and took off his face mask. He only did this in their room and Anko knew why. He was drop-dead gorgeous. Kakashi leaned in and gave Anko a kiss and a wink with his uncovered eye. She grinded and pulled him back into bed. 3 days later they expanded the house thanks to some shadow clones from Naruto, water and lighting jutsu form Kakashi and Zabuza and some refreshments form the girl. After Kakashi and Anko's pre-breakfast warm-up Anko had convinced Kakashi to have the men do the work while the girls served refreshments and had a time to relax. She said that Haku was still recovering from the fight yesterday with Naruto, a complete lie, and that she was still recovering from earlier, another complete lie. That caused Kakashi's pride to increase and quickly agreed to it. Thus Anko and Haku got to sit back and enjoy while all the boys did the work. Said work was excellently done. They expanded the kitchen and dining room, as well as the family and living rooms. They built another 2 bedrooms, one next to Kakashi and Anko and the other next to Naruto's. They also built a library as a 3rd floor so that their living room wasn't so crowded with book, scroll shelves. Kakashi and Anko showed the other 3 the book they pick up in town and Zabuza stared for a good 30 minutes at what he saw. The 2 children thought it was really cool and wanted to look at it themselves. Unfortunately for them the adults wanted to use it first and made the kids wait. Kakashi got the first turn and left to go work on expanding his lightning jutsu arsenal and understanding. Anko talked to Zabuza about Haku's training and found that he hadn't trained her in the concoction of poisons. She jumped at the opportunity to train the girl and took off running dragging little Haku with her. That left only Zabuza and Naruto. "Well Brad, I wasn't expecting to train you this soon but I have the best idea for what to work on." Naruto looked at him with bright eyes and excitedly exclaimed, "What are you going to teach me? Cool water techniques? A new taijutsu form? Or maybe even some kenjutsu?" Zabuza chuckled at the boy's excitement then started to laugh evilly which sent shivers up Naruto's spine. "No boy, I notice that you have a ridiculously fast recovery rate and I have decided to test it out. But first I want to tell you that Kakashi has already told me that you have the Kyuubi sealed within you and that I have told Haku. Neither one of us cares about this and instead recognizes that you actually have great power. We trust you boy, but if you betray that trust it will be your damn fault not the stupid fox." Naruto flinched when he heard that Zabuza and Haku knew about the fox but then a smile nearly split his face in half when he heard the end of what Zabuza said. He hugged the tall man and started thanking him over and over again. Zabuza chuckled and patted the boy on the head then with a sadistic grin on his face said, "Don't thank me yet boy. Your parents haven't really taught you much in the way of pain. Sure Anko has taught you a little about interrogation but not how to deal with pain. This is something you are going to have to learn so might as well start now." Zabuza drew out his blade when he said that making Naruto sweat drop. "Now what I am going to do it inflict damage to your body and see how quickly it takes for your body to recover. First we will start with scratches, then cuts, followed by gashes. These will hurt but it will help you in the long run. We will then give you a break and test out bruising, then sprains, followed by broken bones." Naruto gulped but understood that this would help and be a good idea and they began. Naruto found that even though the injuries hurt they healed very quickly and that the pain was only temporary and for a short time. Zabuza was very impressed by the speed at which the wounds healed. A scratch would heal almost as soon as it was made. A cut would heal within a few seconds and a large gash took just a little longer. He found that Naruto couldn't bruise or sprain anything. He also found that it took only 30 seconds for a cracked bone to fix itself and that a shattered bone only took a couple of minutes. He was also very surprised by the amount of pain tolerance an 8-year-old boy could take. Most of the time a broken bone would make them cry but all it did was make Naruto grimes. Wit decided to really test the extent of Naruto's healing ability and ran him through with this blade. Naruto was surprised by this and the pain made him pass out. Zabuza flipped out and started swearing. He didn't think that would happen and he rushed Naruto to the house. Inside Naruto's mind, Naruto awoke not to the field Zabuza and himself were working on his healing factor, but instead he was inside of what looked like a dungeon. He wasn't treated poorly there, for his mindset is more like a castle. He looks around and is confused to see a bunch of prison cells. He then hears something strange. It sounded like two grown men arguing. He walked towards the end of the hallway and surprised to see an extremely large room. The ceiling must have been 100 feet tall. The weird thing was that there were only 2 cells and a small leather armchair. The 2 cells faced each other and were to the right and left of the chair. Now if Naruto thought that was weird, what he saw next struck him speechless. "You fucking furball, you brought that brat in here," said a tall muscular man with raven black hair and obsidian eyes. "Shut the fuck up. It was bound to happen anyway, and the only reason we are in here to begin with is because you are such a fucking dumbass," said a very tall man with blood-red hair. He looked very regal at first until he made a stupid face and raised his hands saying, "I'm Uchiha Madara. I'm so big and important. I should go destroy Konoha because I'm a little bitch who holds a grudge for 100 years. This pissed off the now named Madara. "Well, if you weren't a useless furball and could actually put up a fight against a village and a cage, we wouldn't be in this mess." Oh yeah, this coming from a man in his prime due to his Sharingan, who lost to an old fart. "I'm so sorry if I don't respect anything you have to say, almighty shit face. Don't you dare mock an Uchiha. Make me bitch. Oh yeah, I forgot you can't cause your Sharingan doesn't work in here. Why Ate, what, cut your wrists again like every other emo Uchiha. You are all the same. I'm so powerful, I'm a prideful son of a bitch who only relies on my eyes cause I'm useless without them." The 2 men would have continued if Naruto hadn't walked in and asked them what was going on. Both Madara and the red-headed man just stared at the boy. What felt like 10 minutes passed without anyone saying a word till Naruto finally spoke up. Hi. I'm Uzumaki Namikaze Hitaki Naruto." Both of the older men started laughing and Naruto just stood there confused. The red-headed one controlled his laughter first and said, "Sorry about that. We know who you are and all about you. We have been watching you for your entire life." Naruto just looked at them with an expression that read, "What the hell are you talking about?" The red-headed man chuckled and continues, "My name is Kitsune Kurama and the dipshit across from me is Uchiha Madara. I am the 9-tailed fox that was sealed within you 8 years ago, and he is the dumb ass that forced me into a genjutsu that made me attack Konoha." Naruto was currently on his ass staring at a tall man with blood-red hair who proclaimed to be the Kyuubi Kurama. He had a mixture of feelings going on: anger, bemusement, curiosity, and confusion. Anger because the beings before him are the reason for the death of his father and the exiled life of his family. Bemusement because these said beings, known to be some of the most powerful in existence, are bickering with each other like kid, well, with more colorful language. Curiosity because these beings are so old that they must know tons of information that could help him. And confusion because of all these feelings and the fact that he is here. Naruto was suddenly broken out of his thoughts when he heard the man known as Madara shout out to Kurama, "Nice going, shit brain, now you have just gone and frozen him up." Kurama turned to Madara pissed off and retorted, "Oh yeah, pink eye, how would you have done it differently? For the last time, my eyes aren't fucking pink, they're red, and I would have." Kurama cut him off mockingly saying, pink eye, oh powerful Madara, king of the pink eyes." Madara got really pissed off and their argument continued until Naruto chuckled and the 2 looked at him. Madara addressed him this time deadpanning, "What's so funny, kid?" Naruto had to force himself to stop chuckling and said, "Well, if what you 2 say is correct and you are both who you say you are. You are 2 of the most powerful beings alive and yet you are bickering like a couple of kids." Naruto couldn't hold it in any longer and started laughing again. Kurama and Madara just looked at each other and sweat dropped, realizing what their behavior must look like. They looked back at Naruto and it was Kurama's turn to talk. "So you are mocking us?" Naruto looked at him in dead pain. "No, I'm just being blunt. Plus you said so yourself that you can't do anything about it, so I'm not worried." The other 2 sweat dropped. "How do you know we can't just kill you on the spot?" Madara asked with a menacing tone and dead black eyes. "Easy. There are 2 reasons really. The first would be that Kurama-san said that you couldn't use your Sharingan, so I can conclude that you can do anything within here. To this Madara scowled at Kurama and he looked down in shame. Second would be that if you knew who I was and you have been sealed within me for the past 8 years, you would have either killed me at once, or you would have killed me as soon as I walked in here. To this both men looked impressed by the boy's logic. Now I have a question for you. Both men looked at each other, nodded, and looked at Naruto waiting for his question. Well, just where are we? The Kyuubi was the first to respond. Well, to put it simply, we are within your mind. The castle represents your mindscape, which by the way I am very impressed with because most Jinchuriku's mindscape tend to be a sewer or decayed building. This is generally due to neglect and hate shown to them because of what is sealed within them. But you have been nurtured and cared for by your parents and not looked down upon by the villagers who you were visited by. In fact, they seem to adore you. At this, Madara started to chuckle and Kurama gave him a glare, but it did nothing to the most powerful Uchiha. Okay, so this all is just what my mind is picturing. That's just what the fuzzbucket said. Naruto ignored him and asked the Kyuubi, okay, so if this is just a shape that my mind has given this plane. The Kyuubi nodded and Naruto continued, okay, and that piece of paper on the cells is what is keeping you in that cage. The Kyuubi nodded again. So if I wanted to, I could change this place. Yeah, and what about it? Responded Madara. Well, it means that I could make it so that you aren't trapped inside of a cell. This made both men's jaws drop to the floor. Kurama stuttered out, why you would do that for UUUS? BUUUTWW, we caused your family so much pain. He looked down, visibly showing his regret for his past actions. Naruto just smiled at him. No, you didn't do anything, you were under a genjutsu and this won't come without a price. But Madara-san, you will have to redeem yourself before I even think of letting you free. He turned to the Uchiha and glared and Madara just glared back. So what is this price? I am willing to give you pretty much anything. Well, could you teach me? Madara and the Kyuubi just looked shocked. That was the last thing they were expecting. So Kurama-sensei, do we have a deal? The demon then stuck his hand out of his cage and the two shook hands. Once their hands connected, the landscape shifted and they were now in what looked like a Japanese mansion. There was a one-room house with large windows and comfortable living arrangements but were small. There were no doors and through the window you could see Madara looking out at the surroundings stunned. Kurama and Naruto were sit very large mansion overlooking a flat field with a lake. Trees surrounded the field which seemed large enough for a village to fit in comfortably and still have plenty of room to expand. The mansion had a beautiful rock garden with a pathway through it that lead into a garden of flowers and other flora. Naruto, Kurama, and Madara stared in amazement of the new plane. Kurama was wearing a blood-red shirt, black pants, a black cape, and a silver pendant with a large ruby inside. Within the ruby the kanji for seal could be seen inside of the gem. Think along the lines of laser engraved images inside of glass. Thank you, Naruto, I promise to train you, and as an additional help I will give you some information that may prove to be helpful in the future. First, how we will train is when you fall asleep you will come here and train within your mind, learning the concepts and fell of jutsu or physical techniques. Then you will be able to apply them in the real world much easier. Second, I will be teaching you several different things such as kenjutsu, taijutsu, and my own forms of jutsu. But most importantly, I will be training you in your father's art to make you a seal master. Third, I will be teaching you how to use the power of the Jinchuriku, but in a way that will not corrupt and destroy your body. And fourth and finally, for a little fun, you already know that you have a Kekkei Genkai, but did you know that you have a Dujutsu? Naruto simply stared at Kurama and was amazed. He would become a seal master, learn jutsu form the most powerful demon himself, and he has a Dujutsu as well. This was going to be awesome. Thank you so much, sensei. I promise to work as hard as I can. Kurama just smiled at the boy till he felt a slight disturbance going on outside. Well boy, it looks like it is time for you to wake up. And with that Naruto disappeared from his mind, leaving a free Kyuubi and a trapped Madara alone. Kurama walked over to the small one-roomed house and looked inside at Madara. He smirked and shouted through the glass, "This is what you get for being such a self-righteous ass pink eye." With Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see that he was lying down on a couch. He then heard Zabuza's voice, fuck, what am I going to do? I just put the Gaki into a coma. What are Kakashi and Anko going to think? Fuck, this is bad. What am I going to do? Naruto sat up, unnoticed by Zabuza, and looked out the window. That is bizarre, it doesn't look like much time has passed since I had my training session with Zabuza, he thought. Naruto then turned to Zabuza and asked, "How long have I been out?" Zabuza turned and stared at the boy as though he was looking at a ghost. He then ran over to him and hugged him. "Thank Kami, you're alright." Naruto just stared at the fearsome ninja in shock until Zabuza himself realized what he was doing. The masked mummy quickly jumped off of the blonde and smacked him upside the head. "You never saw me doing that, and not a word of any of this gets out, you got me." Zabuza growled, leaking a substantial amount of ki, killing intent, directed at Naruto. Naruto quickly nodded his consent and they two started talking about what to do next. They both agreed not to continue the regenerative tests and walked outside to the lake to work on water manipulation. With Kakashi was out in the surrounding forest sitting atop a tree reading a book. For once in his life the book didn't have an orange cover, rather it had a black one. Instead of giggling like a schoolgirl around her crush, instead he had a look of concentration that people almost never saw around the aloof ninja. He jumped down and placed the book off to the side so that it wouldn't get damaged if he messed up on his jutsu. He started making hand seals and created a rakery, then swiftly extended his arm and pointed it at a nearby tree. He then let go of his arm and made a single hand seal with his free hand. Just then the rakery extended a good foot from his hand. He then brought his arm up and slashed down, creating a wave of lightning flying towards the tree he was just aiming at. Once he released, he fell to his knees gasping for air and heard a mighty crash. Looking up, he saw that all the trees within 100 yards in front of him had fallen down, cut at the exact same angle his new jutsu was thrown from. Did I just do that? Were Kakashi's last thoughts before passing out due to chakra exposition. Anko and Haku, and you can cause that just by adding this little leaf? Haku asked, holding up a small circular brown and green leaf. Yep, and it is one of my personal favorite ingredients in all of my concoctions. It mixes in well with most poisons and hallucinogenic as well as pain serum and health potions. But I do not recommend putting it inside of a health potion unless you want to torture the one you are healing. Anko responded with a wicked grin. Anko has been showing Haku all the different combinations for her favorite concoctions and her favorite ingredients as well. Anko-san. Haku started to sound nerves, which intrigued the snake mistress, especially because she seemed to be so open and exited to learn. What is it, Haku? I hope this doesn't sound bad, but how strong is Naruto? Anko wasn't very surprised that she would ask this and gave her a warm smile, something she reserved for special moments with her husband and when her son did something great. How strong is Naruto? Well, first off, I want to tell you that you are very powerful yourself and that you will become a force to be reckoned with very soon if you keep training at the intensity you are going. But Naruto, to tell you the truth, he has special seals placed on him to place a major handicap on him. Haku's eye widened at this and Anko continues, now I know that Zabuza has told you that Naruto is the container of the nine-tailed fox. Haku nodded, and I am thankful that both of you haven't judged him for it. Haku then interrupted, why would we judge him because of something he couldn't help? I understand how that feels and would never do the same to someone else. Haku finished and looked down at the ground. Anko reached over and gave her a hug, saying, I know Zabuza told us all about it. We all understand that pain, and that includes me, but that is a story for another day. Now back to Naruto. Because he has the Kyuubi sealing within him, he has a rapid regenerative ability. We have never tested it out, but I would not be surprised if Zabuza decides to in the not-so-distant future. Not only that, but he had the equivalence of a Junin-level chakra amount at his birth, and it has just increased in amount over the years. He has at least a Sannin, if not Kage level of chakra reserves. Haku just looked dumbfounded. The seals I was talking about only allow him to use a sustained amount of chakra at a time and also put a resistant on his movements. So simply he has a ridiculously large chakra reserve and is tremendously faster than he is already. His first time in an actual fight was against you, so he has next to no fighting experience. But now that you and Zabuza have joined us, I believe that we will start allowing you to perform missions. One of us can stay and train, another can perform a major mission, and the third can go on a minor mission with the kids. This all works out perfectly. Anyways, I believe that it is getting to be about dinner time. Let's go find Kakashi and head on home. Haku smiled and followed Anko towards Kakashi's secret training ground. Naruto and Zabuza, nice job, kid, now keep it up. 4. How? Long Naruto grunted. Zabuza was having Naruto work on a water chakra exercise. He had to balance on one finger atop of the water, something he has already done, while with his free hand stretch over the surface of the water command a small stream of water to flow to his hand. I want you to be able to keep a hold of this exercise for at least 2 hours. You have only 40 minutes left. If you can do this, I know without a doubt the jutsus I have planned to teach you. Naruto simply grunted in response and focused more on the exercise at hand. They both were on the surface of the lake for another 20 minutes when they heard people approaching. Naruto simply continued his exercise while Zabuza looked in the general direction of the noise. What he saw surprised him, a passed-out Kakashi being carried by Anko and his daughter trailing behind carrying supplies. Anko looked at what Zabuza was having Naruto, nodded and continued on her way to drop Kakashi off and to start up dinner. Anko on the other hand looked at Naruto in awe. She has been under Zabuza's tutelage for most of her life and he told her she was no ready for such a chakra exercise. True, Naruto was very powerful, if what Anko said was true, but she never could have believed that the blonde ninja was capable of doing that. Zabuza smirked at his daughter's expression and beckoned her over to them. Haku complied, placed her burden on the ground and shunshined over to Zabuza's side. Haku, I think you should attempt the same thing but go at a slow pace. Try to do a handstand, then use only one arm, finally remove one finger at a time until you are able to accomplish this. Haku nodded and proceeded to do as Zabuza instructed. Later back at the house, Haku and Naruto walked in the front door and sat down. They were both absolutely beat and wanted nothing else but to eat, shower, and go to sleep. They both collapsed in their chairs and waited for dinner. Kakashi was still out and Anko told them that he probably wouldn't wake up for another day if not 2. Zabuza and Anko decided that they would train the kids the same way and wait for Kakashi to recover. Naruto gave an audible groan and Haku giggled at the boy's obvious dread. Anko and Zabuza chuckled as well and dinner was placed on the table. They all ate, joked, and planned what would happen the next day. Once they finished they all went to clean up before bed, Haku first then Naruto. The adults had decided to stay up to talk about something. Once Naruto had freshened up he went to his room, but before entering his room he decided to look in on Haku. Given he had never had a sister so he didn't realize how much trouble he might get into. He opened the door with a huge grin saying, "Good night, Haku. And would you like to?" But before he could finish that statement he heard an ear-splitting scream and had to run for it when senbon needles came flying for his face. Haku had been changing into her nightgown and had only her undies on when Naruto barged into the room. Naruto was still too young and inexperienced around girls to realize that he had done something wrong and was yelling behind him for Haku to stop. They ran past the kitchen, Zabuza and Anko laughing their asses off at the two kids running around. One freaking out not realizing what he had done wrong and the other constantly throwing senbon, still not completely dressed. When the adults had had enough of it they both reached out and grabbed the children. Haku realized that she wasn't wearing anything besides her underwear and instantly ran off to her room cursing the blonde moron. Anko and Zabuza had to explain to Naruto what had happened and he blushed realizing just what he did. They all agreed not to do anything about it that night, but in the morning, Naruto then went to his room, got into bed, and waited to be put into dreamland. Inside Naruto's mind, Naruto looked around him and was surprised to see that he was in his mindscape. He turned around to become face to face with the Kyuubi. Surprisingly he was not sore or tired but instead felt fresh and full of energy. "Welcome back, Naruto, would you like to begin your training?" Kurama asked with a smile on his face. He was still smirking about the whole Haku incident and was trying hard not to laugh at the boy. Naruto nodded and they entered the mansion. Kurama led Naruto into an extremely large library with thousands of books. He then turned to the blonde and said, "This is all of my memories. I have made them accessible to you in the form of books and scrolls to make things easier for us. I have decided that we will work on your sealing techniques every other day and taijutsu, kenjutsu and ninjutsu on the others. The reason is that you will not be able to easily train your sealing ability compared to your other ones." "Okay, Kurama-sensei, whatever you say," Naruto said smiling at the fox demon. "I really do like this kid. Maybe I can help him become as powerful as the sage. He certainly has the potential," thought the Kyuubi, and they started on the study of the sealing arts. "Haha, looks like we did it again, boys," shouted a tall, very muscular man with an eye patch and scars running up and down his body. He was greeted by cheers of his men who were all around a grand fire pit. "Those suckers never knew what hit them," chuckled a small ratty man. "Yeah, they weren't much of a fight," the large man said with disappointment. "Chill, Ken, you will have your fights. Tomorrow we go and take out that little family of ninja that live near that pathetic little village we plundered." "You're right. Then maybe I will get the fight I deserve," shouted the large man known as Ken. Yes, you will, but be patient and wait. We don't want you getting all the fun." "Okay, boss," Ken said with a grin on his face. He then shouted to the surrounding men, "Tomorrow we take on a family of ninja. Many will die, but to the survivors there will be treasure upon treasure from the leaf. But for now let us drink and eat to our heart's content." To this everyone cheered and began to fest. Ken then shouted, "Urasu, bring me on of our slaves." The man he was talking to was one of their most fearsome weapons. He was dumb as a rock, hence the name Urasu, but the man was a monster. He was nearly 8 feet tall and his hands looked like he could grab an entire human skull within it and crush it like a grape. Said man nodded and started to lumber over to a large cage. Each footstep could be felt if you were within 5 meters of the guy. He then bent the top rails of the steel and plunged his hand inside. A scream could be heard, but only laughter followed it as all the thugs watched with amusement as a beautiful young girl around 19 was pulled out of the cage by Urasu. He then dragged her over to Ken by her long blonde hair, screaming and kicking. The men around her were just laughing at her, and if she was close enough groped her. When Urasu finally got to Ken, some of her clothes were torn off and she was holding her hands over herself trying to conceal her skin. Ken then chuckled and grabbed the woman and threw her over his shoulder. He started walking off towards the forest, but before he got too far he looked back and shouted, "Once I've broken her and you bastards can do with her as you want." He then laughed and kept walking, enjoying the cheers of his men and the screams of the woman. He continued to walk for a little bit, the women thrashing around on him back. He was really starting to get pissed off, so he threw her on the ground. The force of the impact knocked the breath out of her and she just laid there gasping for breath. Ken looked down with an evil smile and said in a deep dark tone, "Now bitch, I wouldn't get any ideas of running away." While he was saying this he pulled out his long black katana and pointed it at her throat. The edge pressed up against her skin and a small trickle of blood could be seen running down her neck. She stared at him with fear in her eyes when the blade started to go down and cut off her shirt. It went through the fabric like butter and sliced through everything very cleanly. Ken chuckled, then commanded her to take the rest off. She couldn't do anything else and just thought that she would never feel the embrace of a man that she loved, only the sick men who were going to her. Once she was completely naked, he grabbed all the cloths and they burst into flames. She stared in horror and raised a ninja. He then started to pull his pants down and the woman just closed her eyes, waiting, cursing every god there was for causing this to her. She waited and waited, but nothing happened. She slowly opened her eyes and saw the man dead with a kunai in his throat and one slicing his manhood in half. She turned pale and wretched. This was the first person she had seen die, let alone be killed, and it was bloody. She sunk down to her knees, shaking and crying, both form almost being and from seeing the core the man who almost did it. Then a figure landed behind her. He took off his trench coat and draped it over the poor girl. She flinched, afraid that it was someone else who was going to her, but then he heard his soothing voice ask, "Are you all right?" She just looked up at him and before he knew it he had a naked girl holding on to her, crying. The boy, as it turned out to, was completely red and had no idea what to do. So he did what first popped into his head and hugged her. Unfortunately for him, a young girl landed right next to him and with a chakra-enforced punch forced him underground with only his head showing. The naked woman screamed, but before anyone could hear her the newcomer shoved a senbon into her neck, putting her into a death-like state. She looked down at the boy she just buried and glared at him through her wolf mask. He just looked at her through his fox mask and just shrugged. Wrong answer, the wolf-masked girl growled out and the boy was frozen solid. 5 minutes later the wolf-masked girl was leaning down next to the now-dressed blonde woman. "What is your name, miss?" "My name is Rado," she said in a quiet voice, still looking at her frozen, buried rescuer with concern. "You can call me Ukami, and don't worry about him. I couldn't kill him even if I tried," Ukami said with a quiet laugh. Rado just looked confused, but before she could ask Ukami to elaborate she heard the sound of cracking ice and looked to see the boy with the fox mask shivering, free-form ice, but still buried from the head up. He glared at Ukami and whined, Ukami, you know how much I hate being frozen. This made Ukami laugh. She then went over the core of Ken and started to strip it down. Anything good? Ukami took out all his kunai and explosion tags, then noticed the sword lying down beside him and picked up. The fox-masked boy went over to her and whistled. Damn, that is one nice sword. Looks like it may have some chakra metal infused into it. He then looked down at the core with a new sense of respect. Hey Kitsune, if this man was powerful enough to have a weapon like this, you think others will be as powerful? We saw the surprised look at Rado, so we can conclude that they didn't show their full potential when taking out the village. So it is either this was the boss or one of his top members. I have my money on the boss still being with the rest of the men. I think he may be smarter than this buffoon. I mean seriously, I got him with only one kunai. Elite ninja can sense that shit a mile away. Well, he did have him mind on something. Damn it, I wish I could have done some more damage to the bastard for what he was about to do to Rado. Don't worry, we will be able to make them all pay for their actions, Ukami said with a sadistic tone in her voice that made both Kitsune and Rado shiver. She then turned to Rado and started to explain the plan she and Rado had come up with before taking out her assaulter. Okay, so I lead you to them. Hide behind a tree near the location of the cages. You two will take out the entire army by yourselves and rescue all the surviving villagers. Are you two crazy? Rado exclaimed. Shut up or they will hear us, growled Kitsune. We can handle ourselves against elite Nook Nins. We can easily take out an army of bandits. If there are any ninjas still with them, I will take them on while Ukami exterminates the footmen. Ukami nodded her head in affirmation and they started their walk towards the bandits' camp. In the camp, what is taking Ken so long with the fucking bitch? She can't be that good if she was from this village, grumbled an ugly brutish man. Maybe he can't get it up, chuckled a tinny weasel-looking man. Haha, I wouldn't be surprised. He has got to be compensating with that fancy sword of his, said another rough-looking man. The group around the fire laughed until they heard a dark voice whisper, I wouldn't be talking so illy of Ken-san, you know how he treats those that talk behind his back. The voice left them all ridged and each one of them was close to pissing themselves. But he wasn't done yet. You know, I may tell Ken-san and watch him rip you limb from limb just to amuse myself. The weasel-looking man started to form a wet spot near his crotch. With a feral grin he walked away, leaving the two men in a tense silence. They both looked at each other and agreed that it was time for bed and that the hot little thing Ken had would be just as sweet later on in the week. Doki, who had come and scared the living hell out of the two grunts, was just laughing his ass off in a high-up tree. What a bunch of fucking little girls, ha ha ha. Why do we even deal with little shits like them anyways? We could just as easily form a larger group of Nook Nins and do so much more with so much less shit, he thought, looking over the pathetic camp. He was third in command, second only to Ken and their leader. Ken sure is taking a while, though I think I had best go check on him. He started heading over towards the direction where Ken was headed, and about 100 meters away from the camp he froze in his tracks. He didn't do this out of instinct or foresight, he literally froze in place. Doki looked like a human ice pop with his head being the stick. Before he could yell out, a figure in a fox mask appeared in front of him and placed a piece of paper on his forehead, and he instantly went out like a light. Okay Ukami, you can unfreeze him. My seal took care of the bastard, Kitsune informed, watching the ice instantly turn to water and fall from the man. So, how do you want to go about interrogating him? She asked. Even though she couldn't see Kitsune's face because of the mask, she could sense the demonic look he was giving off. I believe that this will work just fine, he responded, pulling out a syringe full of an iridescent blue liquid she had never seen before. What is that? Piped out Rado with a curious look on her face. This girl's is my latest creation, Kitsune said with a light-hearted tone. I call it, well, I haven't decided what to call it yet, but to put it simple, it forces the one injected with the liquid to hallucinate his greatest fear. He can hear us, but it takes the shape and or sound of what he is hallucinating. We can, by this seal, make adjustments to what is going on and also activate the poison located within the serum. The poison will not activate until chakra is pushed into the seal, so we have an unlimited amount of time and can finish him off whenever we wish. The poison will actually spread throughout the body, and once activates acts like lava but starts from the outside in, and from bottom to top. It will start to melt his feet, then moving up his body until he is completely gone. And the best part is that there is no cleanup because the melted remains of the person actually evaporates. Kitsune explained all this to Rado's horror and Ukami's admiration. He then proceeded to inject the man with the poison and, at the same time, removing the seal. At once the man woke up and stared in horror at the boy. Before he could scream, Kitsune slammed his fist into Doki's mouth, preventing the man from letting out any sound. He then whispered into his captive's ear, "Now don't even think about raising your voice or I will kill you on the spot." The man's eyes opened dramatically and started to nod at his head as soon as Kitsune took his fist out of his mouth. Kitsune then looked at his hand and saw that the man's teeth shredded. He watched as the skin on his hand re-knitted itself together within seconds. Kitsune turned towards the man and began the interrogation. "What is your name?" "Doki, what were you out here doing?" "I came to search for Ken, the second in command of our group." "What is your position?" "I am third in command." "Well, as of now you are the second because I have already killed Ken." "I am not surprised. Why did you destroy the village you recently attacked?" "It had many beautiful women and also our leader had said an artifact of great worth was located within the village." "What was it and did you find it?" "No, we didn't. Our leader was very irritated but he would not tell us much about it, just that it was a black book with the kanji for element on it." "Do you know why he wants it?" "He told us it was of great worth and that we would all profit from such an item. None of us had any intentions of taking it for ourselves because we explained that only he knew what it would say." "That was a lie, but I take it he is a ninja then?" "Yes, and very powerful at that." "How many Nook Nins are part of your company and how many are not?" "Including the man you had just slain there were 7 of us, our leader, 3 generals, and 3 lieutenants under them. Each general has a group of 50 men under them. Thus we have 150 men under 3 different leaders who are under 1. How powerful are the ninja and men? Ken was the best besides our leader. He specialized in Kenjutsu and had a fire affinity. I am our second strongest, specializing in Genjutsu and I have a lightning nature. Third is Sango, he has a water affinity and is a Taijutsu specialist. The most powerful lieutenant's name is Urasu. He is an earth-natured brute of a man. He is a giant who feels no pain and fears nothing, but he is extremely stupid. My lieutenant's name is Bufu. He has a wind nature and specializes in hand-to-hand combat and ninjutsu. Weakest member is Shido. He is a Nara who specializes in the shadow possession jutsu. You didn't describe your leader. I need not explain him to you, only his name. He has an entire page in the bingo books. Who is he and what is his rank? Kitsune was now getting a little excited about fighting all these ninja. It may mean he could release his true power. He is the last of the Kuranpu clan, the same as the Nidaime Raikage. He attempted to kill both the Sandaime Raikage and his child who now is the Yondaime Raikage, in order to become the Yondaime Raikage. He failed but was able to obtain the Sandaime's and now Yondaime's signature jutsu and also has the black lighting ability. He is known as the Raiko Akuma and is an S-class Nook Nin. Yep, I will defiantly have fun in this fight, thought Kitsune. Then he said, "Thank you and now do back to the camp and do not say a word or else you will suffer my wrath." "Yes, Shinigami-san." And with that Doki left without even looking back. The 3 followed him. On their way to the camp, Kitsune chuckled, making Radio and Ukami look at him. He noticed then said, "Sorry, I just think it is funny how his greatest fear is the Shinigami." "Why wouldn't you be afraid of the Shinigami?" asked Radio, who was getting piggybacked by Ukami for the convenience of speed. "Well, we all have an expiration date, why should we be afraid of when it is approaching? Death is just part of the natural order and it comes for everyone. So why be afraid of what only naturally happens?" His logic made perfect sense, but she still felt that death was something to be feared. Kitsune then looked at both Ukami and Radio saying, "If you don't want to see this man's death then you better look away now. He is entering the camp and I intend to scare everyone by melting him." He then pushed chakra into the seal he had to activate the poison, and right when Doki was in the center of the camp started to scream. Everyone ran towards him knowing something tribal must be happening if he of all people screamed like that. They were all horrified when they watched his feet melt and he continued to sink into the puddle of himself. Several threw up and others just sat there scared shitless. Ukami turned to Kitsune and asked, "How did you come up with such a concoction?" While Rado was off behind a tree losing the contents of her stomach. "To be honest, our very old friend told me about it. It is an old forgotten potions that was used hundreds of years ago," Kitsune whispered so that Rado wouldn't hear. To this Ukami nodded in understanding and walked over to Rado. You okay there, Rado? She asked. Why yeah, it's just that I'm not used to seeing that sort of thing. She stuttered, still very shaken by seeing something so disturbing. I understand, but we must continue with the plan. I need you to start heading towards the cages, ready to run in and take the prisoners out, Ukami, and I will take care of these buffoons. Radio nodded and started to head into the forest to go around the camp and station herself near her possession. But she turned around and kissed Kitsune on the cheek of his mask, saying, "That was for good luck, and do your best to irradiate these men." She then rushed off, leaving an extremely scared Kitsune. He turned to Ukami and he could feel the ki radiating off of her. "We will discuss this later," was all she said, then turned towards the body and waited for it to completely evaporate. Once it did, both Kitsune jumped up into the sky and descended upon the men. They threw explosion tags attached to kunai throughout the group, killing off dozens of people every time. They landed where Doki's puddle once was and nodded towards each other. Haku started to form ice senbon and launch them at the surrounding men, killing whoever was unlucky enough to come in contact with them. Not only did they stick into the men, but she had perfected them to melt, then enter the bloodstream until they reached the heart, freezing the heart. While Ukami was killing off the footmen with impunity, he was searching for the ninja. The first one he came into contact with just so happened to be the weakest of the lot, Shido. Kitsune simply let him use his shadow possession jutsu of him and overpowered the jutsu. Because this jutsu allows the stronger of the two to become the enforcer of the jutsu, but the caster has considerably less resistance. Kitsune simply lifted his hand and grabbed a kunai from his pouch, causing Shido to do the same. With one quick movement, to Shido's horror, Kitsune slit his throat. Shiso fell down drowning in his own blood, but Kitsune's neck simply healed. "Well, that was no fun," Kitsune grumbled. Only to hear a voice behind say, "Well, maybe I can help with that." Kitsune turned around and jumped back just in time to dodge a vicious kick to the head from Sango. "So I take it you're Sango." "Yep, now take this, Mizuryu no Jutsu." Then a giant dragon formed out of water started to form. Kitsune smirked and waited for the attack to come towards him. He made 5 hand seals and then pushed his right hand out in front of him. When the dragon got close, he moved his hand back and the dragon followed. Kitsune moved his hand behind his back and transferred hands, then pushed his left hand towards Sango, forcing the jutsu to crash into its caster. Kitsune then made another set of hand seals, shouting, "I have no idea what to name this, yet no jutsu." Sango go up and sweat dropped at this, but not for long, because a small whirl of air compressed in the center of his palm. He then brought it back and threw it like a baseball, aiming for Sango. It hit him right in the gut and tore straight through him. Sango gasped for air and fell down dying. "When do I get to fight Kuranpu?" he shouted, but in response the last 2 of the ninja jumped in front of him. "How dare you say our leader's name out loud? We will kill you for your insolence," shouted Bufu. Well, at least Kitsune thought it was Bufu, because if he was correct, Urasu was the really stupid-looking yet huge one behind the single-handedly took out your Ken, Doki, Sango, and Shido without breaking a sweat. "What makes you think you have the slightest chance?" countered Kitsune. "You kill Ken-sama," shouted the giant. "Yes, I kill Ken, hentai, pervert. I struck him down like the busu he is." That really pissed off the giant, and that scared Bufu. Before Bufu could get away, Urasu slammed his fist down on top of him, killing him instantly. Well, 1 down and 1 to go, thought Kitsune, sweat dropping at Urasu's actions. The giant then charged at Kitsune and slammed his huge fist down where Kitsune was. Kitsune then appeared next to Urasu's head and did a tornado kick enforced with chakra. But to his surprise, this did nothing to the giant, and Urasu swung at Kitsune like an irritating fly. "Wow, this guy is strong. What did Doki say about him again? Oh yeah, he is an earth user, so he must be using some sort of armor to protect himself." He then started forming hand seals and lighting began to charge up around his hand. He then charged at Urasu's back and plunged his arm into his back. Assassination Tech Shidori. Once Kitsune pulled his arm out of Urasu, the giant man fell forward dead. This caused all the surrounding footmen to cry out in fear, because all of their leaders fell so easily to a mere boy. Many threw their weapons down and tried to escape, but those that did run just became pincushions. None would escape this slaughter. Kitsune nodded towards Ukami, who was just a few meters away, and started to head towards the large tent in the northern part of the camp. He pulled out the sword he had stripped from Ken and leisurely slew any grunt that got near him. He walked. When he made it to the tent, he was surprised to see the leader just sitting there looking at Kitsune with a shogi board in front of him. "It's about time you showed up," the leader said. "Yes. Would you play a game of shogi with me before we fight?" Kitsune simply nodded, and the two began their game of shogi while Ukami finished off the rest of the minions. Once Ukami finished off the last man, she came over rather pissed off to see her partner playing a game with the man they're supposed to kill. But before she could say a word, the man moved one last piece and ended the game. "Damn, you are pretty good at shogi," Kitsune said. "Well, it comes with playing against Inara, I presume," chuckled the Kururanpu. "What is your name, if I may ask? It is only polite to give your name and show your face if you wish to find that out about another young one," the now past leader of the gang said, not unkindly. Kitsune then removed his fox mask and smiled. His cerulean blue eyes seemed to glow and radiate power. "My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Hitaki Naruto, keeper of the Kyubi, son of the Yondaime Hokage, exile of Konoha, and adopted son of Sharingan no Kakashi and Enko the Shadow Snake." "That is an impressive name. You come from a strong family, and I show my respect to you by giving you my name. I am Kururanpu Taka, known as Raiko Akuma, son of the Nidaime Raikage, and possessor of the fabled black lighting and lighting armor, an S-class Nook Nin who was able to fight the Sandaime on even terms, and past leader of this company." With that, both Naruto and Taka took their battle stances and prepared for battle. Naruto turned to Ukami saying, "Haku, I know I can take him, but I may have to release my seals, so I want you to help radio get all the villager out of here and as far as possible. If you have enough chakra, try to use your mirror transport to get them out of here." "But Naruto, what if you need my aid and I am too far away to lend it?" she asked with concern on her face. She didn't want to lose him. "I promise I will come back. I never go against my word. That is my ninja way, my nindo." Haku smiled, knowing that he would come back to her, but before heading away she walked over to him and kissed him on the cheek. "That was for good luck. If you don't come back alive, I will find a way to bring you back just to kill you again." And with that she shunshined away to help get the villagers to safety. "You seem quite confident for being so young," Take said, rather amused that such a young boy would have this kind of determination and power. "I am 12 years old, but mentally I am 16, which in ninja years is pretty old." "How is that possible?" "I train with the Kyubi during my sleep. Thus I age twice as fast because I don't lose half of my life asleep." "You are on good terms with the Biju?" he asked, astounded. "Yes, and we have become good friends over time." "That is amazing. I wonder what other tricks you have up your sleeves." "Well, I will keep them a secret until we fight," Naruto said with a smile. "I see. Well, let's just test them out," Taka said, matching Naruto's smile. Both Nook Nins jumped at each other with incredible speeds. Taka aimed a punch at Naruto's stomach but was blocked by Naruto's forearm. The power behind the hit forced both combatants back, and a shockwave was made by the impact. All the villagers stared at the two ninja with awe and fear until Haku made a 25-meter wide, 3-meter high mirror to transport them away from the fight. She ushered everyone inside, feeling the shock waves produced by the two ninjas' blows, and before entering the mirror herself, she looked back and whispered, "You better come back, Naruto, you just better." The ice mirror disappeared and both ninja jumped apart. Taka smiled. "You are pretty powerful for a kid. And your little girlfriend is too." "She is not my girlfriend," Naruto shot back, turning red. "Ha ha ha. Well, not that it matures anyways, but was she an ice nature?" "Yeah. She is an amazing one at that. The ice mirror you saw earlier was so thin that you wouldn't have been able to see it if you saw it the other way." Taka whistled. "Damn, that girl has some skills. How did you two become so strong?" "Well, it just so happens that we own that little book you so ruthlessly destroyed the village for." Taka's mouth dropped to the floor. "How did you find it?" "I hid the book there years ago. It was in a bookstore and we were looking around for ninja scrolls. Actually, my father found it and we have all been training with it. To tell you the truth, that lightning cloak you were bragging about, not that impressive." This really pissed Taka off. "Oh yeah? Well, how about I show you just how powerful the jutsu is?" Taka then charged the lighting chakra through his system and infused his skin and muscles with it. "Try to top this," she shouted with a grin. He then charged towards Naruto. Naruto barely had enough time to shunshin out of the way before the ground he was standing exploded with the force Taka hit it with. Taka then turned around and dashed towards the boy, intending to strike him through with his lighting armor. Naruto formed a small wind cover over his hand and deflected the blow. He then did the same to his foot and lashed towards Taka's head. Taka ducked and went for a leg swipe, forcing Naruto to jump up. Naruto then came down with an axe kick only to strike the ground. He quickly turned around but was too late. Taka had taken the small gap of opportunity that he had and slammed his head straight through Naruto's stomach. Naruto gasped for air, feeling the pain explode through his body. Taka looked at the boy. Naruto, you were a worthy adversary. I am sorry it had to end like this, but you stood in my way. Rest in peace. And with that, Taka took his arm out from the boy and started to walk away. He kept waking till he noticed that the sound of the boy's body hitting the ground never came. He turned around and stared with an open mouth at the boy. Naruto was still standing, his head down and eyes closed, but for some reason he was not bleeding. Taka continued to stare until he heard the boy chuckle. This completely unnerved the experienced Nook Nin. You are truly a powerful ninja, Taka. I have only seen 3 people who have roughly the same power that you do. All 3 are my teachers, and I can say I have never beaten 3 as a reason for that. He then opened his eyes, looked towards Taka with a feral grin on his face. I have only shown you a little bit of my power. But who better to test myself completely? Naruto then began to form several hand seals. Release. Taka almost fell back by the tremendous amount of chakra the boy was emitting. That has to be even above cage level chakra reserves. How the hell could such a young boy have so much chakra? He then looked at the wound that he had delivered less than a minute ago, and to his astonishment it was fully healed. How is that possible? No one could have that kind of healing factor. Taka then made eye contact with the boy. Naruto then blinked, and when he opened his eyes the cerulean blue had covered his entire eye, pupils and sclera. In fact, it looked just like a Hyuga's, just cerulean blue. What the hell is that? Taka yelled, looking into Naruto's eyes. You should feel lucky. These are the 4th Dujutsu. I call them the Arashigan. Just so you know, you are the first ever person outside of myself that has ever seen them. I haven't even shown my family yet. Naruto said, chuckling at the end. He smiled and started to charge up his elemental chakras. Taka stared at him with fear and admiration when he watched the air around him start to whirl and he could hear the screaming of the water. This boy can make a wind cloak. That is impossible. Wind can't be manipulated like that. But we started to go pale when water started to cover the wind, forcing it to swirl and move just like the body of the ocean during a storm. Just when we thought he was going to flip shit, he smelt the familiar scent of ozone and watched as Naruto formed the lightning cloak over the water and wind. He could barely see Naruto's face, but he could sense that he was having the time of his life. Just so you don't get too scared, the only thing I have figured out that my eyes can do is have perfect control over the 3 elements. Water, wind, and lightning. I cannot fuse them but can use all 3 at the same time. But there is one minor drawback. I have found that it is impossible for me to learn any type of fire-earth jutsu. He then drew out his sword and did the same thing to it. Taka at this point was just about to shit his pants. I can't believe I am being forced to use my most powerful technique on a kid, he thought, then began to form hand seals like crazy. Naruto, being a cocky little ass, just let him have the time to use his jutsu. Assassination technique. Kuroi Raiko. Kuro Tengai no Jutsu, Black Lightning. Dark Dome. Taka shouted and black lighting shot out of his entire body. The black lightning surrounded the 2 of them and blocked out all light. Taka then began to chuckle. I am very impressed with you, Naruto. You have forced me to use my most powerful jutsu. You will not be able to see and hear, only I can. You have proven great skill, and I will make sure to spread news of your great power after I have killed you. Now Naruto, die. Taka ran behind Naruto and charged up a black Chidori and lunged for his heart. But to his surprise, Naruto just blocked it with his sword. How? Taka asked, struggling against the amount of strength Naruto was using to hold Taka's arm in place. Apparently my eyes can see in utter darkness. I didn't know this. Thank you for helping me better understand my dujutsu. And with that being said, Naruto slammed his fist into Taka's heart, tearing through it like he was punching through paper. Naruto pulled his arm out, and once he did, the dome dropped and he placed the now dead Taka down on the ground. I am sorry that I had to kill you, but you destroyed a town and killed many of the people I loved in that village. You had to be stopped. Rest in peace. Naruto had deactivated his chakra cloak and used his fingers to close Taka's eyes. Then he pulled out a piece of paper, drew several lines on it and placed it on Taka's forehead. He channeled chakra into the piece of paper whispering, Fuinjutsu, Obo Kiroku, sealing technique. Mind record. The paper turned into a scroll and Naruto picked it up. He then placed his hand on Taka's sternum and used his lightning-powered chakra to turn him into ash. With Haku on the other side of the mirror, they appeared before the now destroyed village. There wasn't a building left unharmed and smoke was still coming off some of the burnt rubble. The many of the villagers looked at it in sorrow and anger, but a select few took it as a blessing. Haku stepped forward and jumped on a stone wall that used to be a house. She turned around and the villagers looked at her in silence, both in respect and fear. Respect because this girl had been able to move them back to the village and also she saved them from the bandit gang. Fear because they didn't know what she would want in recompense. Haku could feel the tension in the air and decided to help lift the mood. She took off her face mask and reveled to the village that it was their very own Haku who liked just over the valley. After seeing this she could see the smiles form on their faces and could hear the cheers forming. I wish Naruto were here with me. He knows how much I hate taking in front of people, she thought. Then she cleared her throat and began to speak. I know that you have experienced a great loss, both in the death of loved ones and in the destruction of your town. But now is a time for rebirth and regrowth. She paused and saw that everyone was listening intently to her now. Right now we need to separate into groups. Half of you start moving the fallen timber and stones outside of the town. The other half will be split into two parts. One will be in charge of knocking down walls that are still up and the other group will go and scavenge the town for anything that survived. Once she finished they all started to form into the three groups that would help start the reconstruction of the town. She looked off towards the direction where she had left Naruto and smiled knowing that he would come back. He always came back. With Kakashi and Zabuza were at the home studying. In actuality they were down in the hidden basement of the house known to them as the Library of Gold. During one of the few missions in which Kakashi and Zabuza had tag teamed to make it go by easier and quicker, they had begun on the topic of literature. Flashback no Jutsu. Zabuza, do you read? Kakashi asked while the two ninja were jumping from tree to tree on their way back from eliminating a group of Nook Nins terrorizing a small town. Zabuza turned and looked at his new companion. Yeah, but your wife has made it very clear that my type of literature will not be tolerated inside the house. He said this with a sound of great sadness. Kakashi was a little surprised. He looked over at the mummy, which had become his nickname given to Zabuza by Naruto, and asked, what type of books do you like? Well, if it wasn't obvious from my description, Cyclops, I have grown to love the Icha Icha series. He turned to Kakashi and instead of seeing the disgusted look he was expecting he was Kakashi with his eye smile. Well then I have something to show you when we get back. Once they arrived Kakashi led Zabuza into the pantry. He walked all the way to the back and pulled out the sack of lima beans blocking the entrance to his library. He passed the sack to Zabuza who in turn responded, are you kidding me? Why in the name of hell do you have lima beans? Nobody likes this shit. Kakashi simply have him another eye smile and flipped the switch causing the trapdoor to come down. Zabuza's eyes opened. You are a fucking genius Kakashi. But what is down there? Without saying a word Kakashi waved down the stairs and disappeared from sight. Zabuza shrugged and followed suit. Once he got down his jaw fell to the ground. Before his was the largest collection of Icha Icha he had ever seen in his life. He turned to Kakashi and almost kissed him. I told you I had something to show why matter of fact way. Zabuza then bent down on his knees and started to bow to Kakashi. You are a god among men being able to hide such a forbidden treasure. I know now let's enjoy our time off. Anko shouldn't be back from the village for another hour at least and Haku and Naruto are with her, Kakashi said waking over to the wall and picking out one of the books and passing it to Zabuza. They then sat in plusher chairs and instantly began giggling like a bunch of schoolgirls. Flashback off Zabuza turned to Kakashi and grinned a slight nosebleed running down his chin and into a small cup strapped to his throat that Kakashi had invented just for these situations. In fact, it had a seal to pump the blood back into the user's system so that they could have a continual nosebleed and not pass out from blood loss. He was working on armor to do the same thing, but it was incredibly tricky to make the seal so that if torn due to a slash or something it would still remain activated. The family knew of this, but Kakashi was unwilling to present his work until he deemed it complete. All of a sudden some of the seals surrounding the house went off, meaning someone was within 5 minutes of the house. Kakashi and Zabuza immediately stood up, placed their books down on their seats, tore off their reading cups and rushed upstairs. Anko, Naruto, and Haku were supposed to be in the village all day shopping and meeting up with old friends. Because of this, both experienced Nook Nins thought that someone was trying to break in. Once they go outside though, they felt the familiar chakra signature of Anko rushing to the house. Kakashi and Zabuza both shunshined towards her, meeting her halfway. Kakashi was the first to speak. "Anko, what happened? Where are the kids?" Anko was sweating and a little frantic. Panting, she began to explain what happened to the village and that Naruto and Haku had rushed off to rescue the villagers. "And you let them go by themselves?" A rather pissed off Zabuza yelled. He has always been overprotective of his daughter. "Shut up, you piece of shit, you know as well as I that they can handle themselves. What I came here running for it that the village is completely destroyed and I was thinking that we need to help it. But first we should run over to Ryokucha, the capital of tea country. Translation is green tea thought it worked since I don't know the actual capital. And obtain help from the daimyo." They all understood what she was talking about. If they could communicate to the daimyo about the damage and casualties that the town had received and that they had aided in it, they may obtain his favor. This meant they could obtain political immunity from Konoha and hopefully be able to travel to the over villages without being attacked for being Nook Nin. Zabuza and Kakashi both nodded and all three of the infamous Hitaki Momochi family headed towards Ryokucha. Naruto was exhausted. Activating his dujutsu took a lot out of him, and pulling upon its power to use all three of his chakra natures at once drained him of a lot of chakra. He was leaning on a large tree not far from where the ash pile that was Taka lay. He had his new sword strapped to his back, the blade being too long to place on his waist. He was staring at the sky following the clouds. He was at peace. The battle between the two Nook Nins had scared all the animals away, creating a quiet that was rarely experienced. He closed his eyes ready for a small nap in order to recuperate, and he also wanted a chat with his tenant. Kurama and Naruto's relationship had grown dramatically over the years. Kurama had discovered that Naruto lacked in his schooling, most likely because Kakashi and Anko didn't think it necessary. Sure, they had taught him how to read and write, operate mathematic equations, and did a considerable amount of strategy tactics, but he lacked greatly in the history and science department. He knew a little about the general history of the world, like the famous cages, major battles, and famous ninja, but that was mostly because of his study of strategy and reading what they did. In regards to science, he understood a little about chemistry and anatomy, but he didn't understand all of it, and he knew little about physics besides the greater the distance the more powerful the force needed to stay accurate. Kurama had taken it upon himself to make sure the young blonde was well versed in all the possible knowledge out there. When Naruto had asked why he had to learn boring facts about deceased men who were rotting in the dirt, Kurama had backhanded him into a large collection of stones and told Naruto that he would not live in an idiot. The reason Naruto was able to concoct his devious poison was because the Kyuubi had tutored him in chemistry. Naruto was always able to judge his distances and hit a bullseye because of his extensive understanding of trigonometry and physics. Overall, Naruto was an absolute genius, and it was all because of Kurama. And the old fox was very proud of his work. The relationship between Madara and Naruto was still slow-moving. Madara was still pissed off that he was sealed within the boy, and Naruto still hated the pompous Uchiha for killing his father and making his adopted parents' lives harder. But they had progressed to at least speaking to each other. Once Naruto had awoken his dujutsu, Madara grew curious about it and started to observe its capabilities. He would not lie, Naruto was powerful, especially at such a young age, but he still refused to help him. The jailed should not help the prison willingly, and so far Naruto had not asked for his help. The two had spoken about dujutsus briefly, and Naruto had grown to realize that he possessed a powerful gift. Madara had explained that every Jinchuriku would obtain a Kekkei Genkai, but that it almost never manifests within that individual's lifetime. And in fact, almost every dujutsu in existence was created from the offspring of Jinchuriku. The few that hadn't included the three other dujutsus, bone, crystal, paper, and shadow manipulations. The dujutsus came down from the Rinnegan, but the others were gifted to humans by demons that viewed them as worthy, helped them, or worshipped them. To this Naruto had flipped shit, but was calmly explained to that demon was just a term humans gave to powerful being that didn't fall under the norm. Madara had proven to be a valuable resource when discussing Kekkei Genkai. The hard part was getting him out of his Uchiha brooding spell they called meditation. When Naruto closed his eyes, he appeared in the landscape he created all those years ago. He stood upon the mansion patio next to a beautiful koi pond and flower garden. He looked to his right and saw Kurama lying on a cot strapped between two trees. The old fox demon smiled when he saw the boy and got up out of his comfy position. "Well, you did a great job there, Gaki. I especially loved the overkill." The then put on a serious face, "But if you ever start spewing information about yourself like that again, I will shove my foot up your ass so far you can literally task the dirt on my boots, got it?" To this Naruto visibly paled, then realizing what Kurama said hung his head in shame. "Look up, you did well, but don't make the same mistakes. You are going to be very powerful, so don't go telling everyone you fight what you can do. Actions speak louder than words." To finish on a good note, that was the best fight I have seen in a long time. Kurama's face brightened and he smiled at the boy. Naruto grinned. "I know I went a little overboard, and I am sorry I blabbed my mouth. It won't happen again. I am just glad I got to take my eyes out for a test run." "Yep, and that tidbit with seeing in zero light helps you out a lot." "I know, right? Hey, do you have any idea how I could get a hold of some shades that would cover my eyes up completely so that I could activate them without anyone knowing? Still wanting to keep it a secret from you family, I take it?" "Yeah, I want to master of them my newfound ability. Well, I can't really think of one off the top of my head, but I will read up in the memory library." "The what? Oh yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting that you haven't seen the entire of the house." "Well, that is because you have me trained the whole time. I haven't had the opportunity to look around." Naruto snapped back, scrunching his face and pushing out his bottom lip. "Do you not like the fact that I have been training you?" "That isn't what I meant at all." "Good. Cause if it was, then I would have to completely fuck with your psyche." Naruto's sweat dropped. Now that he had allowed the Kyuubi free access to his mindscape, the fox could really fuck with his mental state. Seeing the blonde's reaction, Kurama laughed. "You actually think I would do that? Haha, no, you have been too kind to me, and demons always repay those who are kind to them. Didn't I explain this already?" "Yeah, but living with humans all the time, you tend to forget that demons think differently. Especially since you act like us all the time. It kind of slipped my mind." Kurama frowned. "We are basically the same, Naruto. The difference is that we live for a long, long time and can't be killed easily. In fact, once demons get to a certain power, they cannot be killed. But I already explained this to you when we went over the history of the Biju." "Now what was I saying? Oh yes, the memory library. Well, because of the way both Imochiya and I were sealed, our memories are available to you, and subsequently the reverse is true as well. When you created this mindscape, you subconsciously created a library full of our memories. Because of how long I have lived, I do not remember everything in clear details, so having this library is extremely convenient. I will be able to find old forgot information that was lost during the Age of War. Madara has been around since the founding of the ninja nations and can be a good source of information regarding your present world. All of our memories and experiences are at your disposal, so you would be wise to take full advantage of it." Naruto smiled. "Sounds like we have a lot of studying to do." Yes, we do." The Kyuubi's face then darkened. "Unfortunately, you are not ready at this time." "And why the fuck not? Because I said you aren't. This is my mind, I can do whatever I damn well please." "You are right on that matter, but when have I ever misled you?" Naruto simply glared at him in response. "I thought so. Now will you trust me, or are we going to have a problem?" "Fine. You win this time, Kurama-sensei, but I swear if I don't get to look in there soon, shit will go down." Kurama laughed at that. "Naruto, how about this? If you will agree to comply and wait for my decision, I will teach you something that will make you so much more badass." Naruto's mood flipped a complete 180. "Really? What is it? What is it?" Kurama smiled. His host may be a monster on the battlefield, but at heart he was still a 12-year-old boy. "Come to the ceiling room and I will show you." The Kyuubi lead Naruto into the mansion and into a pure white room with a large circular table. The table had several pots of ink and stacks upon stacks of paper. This room had quickly become one of Naruto's favorites ever since he started to work on seals. Kurama walked over to the table and jumped to the center, as did Naruto. The center of the table sunk down so that the two could comfortably work. Kurama pulled out a sheet of paper and drew what looked like eyes with an intricately drawn line connecting the two. The eyes were filled in with extremely complicated lines and curves, but both had the exact center left hollow, just like a pupil. Kurama then created a third circle, much smaller than the other two, directly in the center, but instead of drawing the typical seals within, he simply wrote the kanji for sight. Naruto watched this very intensely and tried to memorize everything as the Kyuubi drew it. This looks ridiculously complicated. What does it do, sensei? Kurama smiled. Well, Naruto, do you know why Zabuza is so feared? No shit, he was one of the legendary 7 swordsmen. They were all famous for being the best kenjutsu users in the entire shinobi world. That is correct, but do you know why Zabuza was so feared in and of himself? Naruto shook his head. He invented the art of silent killing. Naruto had a look of surprise that quickly changed into confusion. That is cool and all, but what does it matter? Well, with this here seal you will be able to put this on the back of a blindfold and see through it. But I made some modifications. What do you mean see through it, and what modifications? My idea is that in order for you to become stronger you have to get rid of the one major flaw your race has in a whole. You depend too much on your eyes. This is why people with dojutsus are so praised. Sight is one of the most important things in the world to you humans, and you have made into your greatest strength and weakness. So with this you will wear the blindfold at all times no matter what. Ask Zabuza to help train you so that you can learn his technique and be able to function perfectly well without your sight. This will enhance your other senses so that you will be a more rounded organism. Naruto stared at the demon fox in amazement, then horror. You want me to ask Zabuza to train me while I am blind? Do you have a death wish? I mean seriously, this is the same guy who stabbed me in the gut just to test my recovery rate. What do you think he will do if I give him free rein to screw with me while I can't see? Also, you never explained that modifications. Kurama had laughed at the young boy's plight but decided to comfort the boy. Look here, Naruto, in order to become stronger you have to be able to use all your senses at equal levels and at levels that are above those of a normal ninja. This is why you must train with Zabuza. He will make the training go much quicker. And the modifications are more of a safety net. Pretty much these seals work in tangent with your dojutsu. Basically, when you activate them you will be able to see as though the blindfold was not there. This will help if you are fighting against a strong opponent and you do not wish to show your abilities. Not only that, but it will help you become more acquainted with them and use them for longer and longer periods of time. So pretty much this will help you train your other senses and your ability to use the Arashigan for extended periods of time. Naruto's face light up like the sun and the two started to work on creating the seals so that the Naruto could create his new accessory. With Haku stopped staring out towards the forest and started to help clear the rubble that was once the town she loved. Surprisingly, the death toll wasn't as high as the group expected. None of the women and children had died. Same could not be said for the elderly. Very few had survived due to the gang's apparent lack of need for them. The elderly do not make good slaves. The old librarian was one of the few who had survived and that had relieved Haku. The librarian had become a close friend to the family of ninja over the years. If they were looking for something specific, the man would personally make it his duty to find it in his collection or would go out of his way to obtain it. The old librarian had no children of his own, so he took the 2 children in as his grandkids, spoiling them whenever they came to town and helping them out whenever they needed it. While Haku was happy that he had survived, she was deeply hurt by the fact that over half of the men had perished. They had fought bravely to protect the town, but they stood no chance against the trained fighters. She had hope in her heart that things would smooth over, but she knew in her heart that this event would leave a deep scar on the populace. A teenaged boy, 16 if she would hazard a guess, came up asking for assistance if possible to take down a rather large wall. She followed the boy and saw that it was difficult and time-consuming to destroy the wall by conventional means. Haku formed some hand seals and pushed her chakra out towards the wall. Ice crawled over the entire surface and filled every crack and hole in the wall. Once she was satisfied, she told everyone to get some distance from the wall and cast an earth jutsu that shattered the wall as though it was a flimsy wall of cards. The people working on it thanked her and went to the next job. Surprisingly, no one was surprised that she completed the task in about 20 seconds. She smiled and started to help everyone out. Several hours of hard work had passed, and with the aid of Haku half of the city was cleared. While the villagers were becoming happier and happier, Haku became more and more worried. Naruto hadn't returned yet and she was starting to think that he might have been severely hurt in the confrontation. Maybe he was hurt so badly that the fox couldn't heal him. What if he was killed? What if? Her thought was cut off when she felt a hand press against her shoulder. She turned around to see who it was and saw the kind old librarian smiling down at her. "Do not worry, Haku-chan. He will return." He always knew what she was thinking. She smiled back at him. "I know it is just I worry about the reckless head case." The old man laughed. True, he can be rather bull-headed, but realized that he made that decision so that no one else would be hurt. "The boy is going to grow up to be an amazing man, and I pray that you will be there to help him on his way." Haku blushed and looked down. The old man smiled. "Don't be embarrassed, young one, it is just the way of things. Now I think we should all have a break so that we can collect the village elders and come up with a plan for how we will rebuild the village. And everyone has had a rather rough day, so I think that we should give everyone a break." Haku nodded and called to everyone to the cleanest part of the area and told them all to take a break. Everyone was relieved to hear that and lay down to enjoy the time off from work. They had found some food supplies that were still edible, and a group of people started to cook it up for everyone. Haku called all the elders to meet with her after they had eaten. Once they had all had something warm in their stomachs, the elders and Haku got to work on the designs for the new village. "Do you think we should even build it here? I mean, it is not exactly protected by anything and we may be attacked again," stated one of the oldest members. "I agree with her, it would be best to move to a safer location, one that could be better protected," another agreed. "That is preposterous. This is our home. How could you even think about leaving it?" countered a stern-looking middle-aged man. Haku spoke up. "Well, in reality, it is always best to build a village near a natural structure that can benefit in both economic and safety. A body of water or mountain can aid a city for multiple reasons." Everyone nodded their heads at the young girl's logic. No one even questioned why someone so young was in an elders' meeting. "I think we should discuss this again at a later time," the elderly librarian stated. "I believe that this is an extremely important topic that we should wait to discuss with the whole village before making the decision." Everyone agreed and moved on to other topics regarding the reconstruction of the village, such as communicating with the daimyo and what they should do with the material they recovered. They continued disusing this for about an hour until they realized the time and that they needed to get back to work. After several hours of hard work, they had completed the task, and the elders and Haku asked the village if they thought moving to a new location would be the best course of action. Right when they said this, a voice rang out. "I think that you should wait to make that decision until you have heard what we have to say." Haku and the rest of the crowd looked over to where the voice came from, and they saw that Kakashi, Anko, Zabuza, and Naruto were standing in the outskirts of the crowd. Haku smiled and everyone cheered once they saw Naruto. Their hero had returned, and by the sounds of it the newcomers had some very interesting news for everyone. With Kakashi, Anko, and Zabuza, Kakashi, and Zabuza were almost to Ryokucha when Kakashi signaled everyone to stop. "What's up?" Anko asked. "We need a plan for when we get in there. We have never met the daimyo before and we are all rather famous nook nins. If we just go crashing in, the daimyo may freak out and shit will go down. So far I have enjoyed our time here in tea and I would rather not screw things up," Kakashi stated bluntly. He has a point. If we just go walking in shoving aside important people, then we may get into deep shit. Then if they figure out who we are, the world could come crashing down on our heads. We have lived peacefully for several years and have taken up jobs that present themselves or that we have seen in bingo books. We have to play our cards right or else we will be on the run again, and I don't want my daughter to be put back into that situation," Zabuza said. "Well, that makes sense, so what is the plan?" Anko demanded. Kakashi looked very serious and said, "You both follow my lead." Both Zabuza and Anko face planted. They had thought that Kakashi was going to have this elaborate plan, but just when they were ready for it he says something like that. "Are you fucking kidding me? We're just supposed to tail you like a couple of puppies?" Anko yelled. "No, I have been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time and I don't want you two screwing it up. Right now I want you to come in and stay silent and let me do the talking. I am the most diplomatic among us. If Haku were here I would have her do it though. But right now your names and presence will hopefully speak louder than your words could," explained Kakashi. "Yeah, and that is saying something about you, Anko," Zabuza said. Both Kakashi started to laugh, but at a swift glare from his wife he quickly became silent. When Anko glared at the mummy he saw his own death and paled dramatically. Things became deathly quiet. "That is better," Anko said with a sadistic smile. "Now Kakashi-kun, shall we head out now?" Kakashi nodded and the trio started towards the gate. Once there they talked to the guards and asked to have an audience with the daimyo. They flat out told them that it would be next to impossible until they heard what happened to the village. Word was sent to the daimyo and they were told that an audience would be granted within an hour. They went to the Capitol building and sat in the waiting room. Everyone was a little tense knowing that they may have to fight their way out if things got ugly. They were called in and entered the conference room. Before them was the daimyo, Kamaria Heda. He was a middle-aged man, handsome, and had the appearance of a man who knew what he was doing. Kakashi was always good at deciphering people just by how they held themselves and thought that if he could persuade Kamaria that things would come about very easily. All three bowed before the man in a symbol of respect. Relax, I am not like my arrogant comrades. Now please, I have heard you bring news of the destruction of Jasmine. But before that, would you please introduce yourselves? You all know me, but I do not know who you are, Kamaria stated. Daimyo-sama, I will be more than happy to reveal our identities under the guarantee that you will not attack us after we reveal them. This made the daimyo both very interested and a little apprehensive. I will agree to it as long as you give your word that you will not harm anyone here. I give my word that neither my companions nor myself will harm anyone here unless we are attacked. Kamaria nodded in understanding and also as a way to say continue. My name is Hitaki Kakashi, known also as the Copycat Ninja and also as Sharingan no Kakashi. This is my wife, formerly apprenticed to Orochimaru. We are both Nook Nins of Konoha for reasons we would rather explain in private. Besides me is my brother in all but blood, Momochi Zabuza, also known as the Demon of the Mist. He is a Nook Nin from Mizu for the attempted assassination of the destructive Mizukage. The daimyo was stunned. He had heard of these incredibly powerful Nook Nin who have managed to evade both the Mizu and Ho Hunter Nins. The bingo books said that they were incredibly powerful and that if you were not of high Junin or Cage level to flee on sight. Yet here they were, as a team, and standing before him asking for aid for his own countrymen. To say he was speechless would be an understatement. Once he regained his composure, he started to ask questions. How long have you lived here? Anko and I have lived here for 12 years and Zabuza has lived here for about 4. How have you evaded exposure for so long? We are extremely skilled shinobi. I was previously Anbu. Orochimaru was a master of escape and thus Anko is through training. And Zabuza is one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Our history has given us the abilities. Why are you here? As you said, we bring news of Jasmine. What happened? A bandit raid led by an incredibly powerful Nook Nin, S-class, had decimated it, killing off many and taking the rest to be sold as slaves. What has become of the bandit organization? Our son and Zabuza's daughter has neutralized the threat. Are you saying that you have children and that they were able to kill off an entire bandit organization, led by an S-class Nook Nin no less? Yes, they both posses very powerful Kekkei Genkei. They are both geniuses in their own right and combined can give all 3 of us a run for our money. The daimyo sat there with his mouth on the ground. He had heard that these 3 had become S-class Nook Nins over the years, and to hear that they had children that could fight them off was simply terrifying. Where are they right now? Well, currently I assume that our child is resting after taking out all the ninja in the group and that Zabuza's daughter has all the surviving villagers back at the village doing damage control. So we have 3 S-class Nook Nins, and 2 children at the same skill level. This is ridiculous. How am I to believe this? Well, what if I told you that one of them was the son of the deceased Yondaime Hokage, the most feared man in history? Again the daimyo was speechless. Is this why you are a Nook Nin? You abducted the Yondaime's son? Kakashi sighed. No, the child is currently the Jinchuriku of the 9-tailed fox and was set for execution by the current Hokage Danzo. The Yondaime was my sensei and I could not sit down and watch his child be slain by a madman. Anko and I had been dating for a while and she agreed to aid me. We escaped the Hunter Nin and have been living outside of Jasmine ever since. So in my country there are 5 incredibly powerful ninja that can make the skill of the infamous Hunter Nin look pathetic and can take down S-rank ninja. To put as simply, yes. Well, this is interesting. Now I take it you have come for aid of your home. Kakashi eyes smiled. No, Kamaria had never felt this way before. The man in front of him kept surprising him at every turn of this meeting. He has always been proud of himself, staying one step ahead of those he talked to, but with this man he had no idea what to expect. So if you are not here for aid, what are you here for? I am going to be honest with you right now. Your country has a considerable amount of wealth, being the only true tea producer in the ninja world. But you also have to land and ability to form a military power. I have come to you to ask if you would allow us to create a hidden village near the location of the now destroyed village and ask the population to come and live there. We are skilled shinobi, and I believe that we can create a mighty force if you are willing to financially back us. This will be beneficial to you by having a military and not having to rely on your allegiances for protection. I understand that you will be allowing Konoha no Nins to run it, but you have to start somewhere. Also, I have come to understand that your relationship with Ho country has been strained ever since Danzo had taken up the mantle, and that you may need some protection. The best idea is to keep this a complete secret and not allow anything to leak out. If we can do this, then T country could potentially become a powerhouse in the shinobi world. Given it will be a long time before that time comes, but with the proper training it could be possible. What do you say to that? Kamaria looked at Kakashi with a very seriously, "Are you being serious here?" "Yes, Daimyo-sama. I have been thinking about starting one for several years now, and with your help we may just make that dream into a reality." Naruto and Haku were walking down the main street of the still-growing village. It has been a good year since they started to construct the place and move people in. Kakashi had taken up the mantle of Chokage, T, and was busy directing the construction of the village. Anko was helping him and had become his advisor. Zabuza had become the head coordinator of the schools. Both Kakashi and the daimyo agreed that there should be 3 schools built within the hidden village, one for ninja, samurai, and civilians. The daimyo was providing the instructors for the civilians and one for the samurai. Zabuza was to be the head instructor of the Shinobi Academy. The samurai instructor, Ha, and Zabuza had gotten along splendidly and had decided to help each other in sword fighting. Haku and Naruto were the only ninja of the village and therefore the only ones taking any missions. Very few ranked ever came their way, so they mostly did B to C ranked missions. They had obtained a total of 3 S ranked missions that went off without a hitch, but they were getting bored. Haku and Naruto had their own unique ninja style that is known throughout the shinobi world. Haku had become known as Bloody Mary. This is because of all the horror stories of a woman coming out of a mirror and killing you if you turn the lights off and say her name 3 times. Seemed appropriate since Haku used mirrors in her battles to devastating effects. She had grown partial to the look of a hunter ninja and had dress accordingly. She wore a dark blue long-sleeved shirt with black pants. She had white gloves and black shinobi sandals. She had armor sewn into her outfit as well, shin guards, shoulder guards, some on her forearms, and a breastplate. While Haku's look was somewhat original, she could still pose as a standard hunter nin. Naruto on the other hand had a look all his own. The first thing people saw was that his face was completely hidden. He wore a face mask, just like his father, that covered all the way up to his eyes. But while Kakashi only covered one eye, Naruto covered both with a Hades 8 with the kanji for fox on it. This gave him his nickname, the Barendo no Kitsune, or the Blind Fox. He decided to take after his tenant and wore an outfit similar to Kurama, but more practical for battle. He wore a black short-sleeve shirt with an iron fishnet material underneath. He wore black cargo pants and black steel-toed boots. On top of this he had a blood-red trench coat that shimmered as if made out of real blood. It had black waves hemming the bottom of it in the sleeves. Like Haku, he had armor, but he showed it off by having it make out of a red metal. What very few people knew was that the trench coat was actually made out of steel as well. This was to give him extra protection, and because, well, he wore a fucking metal trench coat. They were on their way to the Chokage Tower right now after just finishing a B-ranked mission involving exterminating a bandit group led by a low-ranking Nook Nin. "So Haku, what are you planning on doing after we go and debrief to Tucson?" Naruto asked his partner. "Well, to go to the house and take a look at the element book. I saw this really cool new jutsu I wanted to try out. What about you?" "That is awesome. Well, I was planning on getting another mission just to pass some time. Nothing long, just a quick C rank that is within our borders. I heard that there was a huge tiger running around the south end of the country and I have been wanting a new carpet for my room," Naruto said with a wicked grin. Haku gave him a stern look. "Don't overdo it like you did that bear in the north. You thought that it would be so fun to try and blow it up from the inside out and nearly died of suffocation because of it." "It's not my fault, the thing swallowed me whole before I could grab my tags," Naruto pouted. "Well, make sure you don't get swallowed this time, okay?" Fine. They had been talking all the way to the doors outside the Chokage's office. Naruto simply pushed the doors open without knocking and shouted, "To-san, we're back." Kakashi looked over at his adopted son and gave him an eye smile. "Naruto, you came back at a great time. I take it you remember your godfather." Kakashi waved his hand over at the giant of a man leaning against the windowsill to the left of Kakashi. "Ero Gigi. You're back, how have you been?" Naruto ran over and gave the white-haired super perv a giant hug. "Haha, I have been great, and how about yourself, Gaki? You have grown since I last saw you," Jiraiya said with a giant grin of his face. "Damn, the kid looks more and more like his father every time I see him." "Well, that happens when you don't drop by more than once every 2 to 3 years, Kakashi deadpanned. Jiraiya's sweat dropped. "Well, you know me. I have been a busy man, see. And I have been covering up this whole new village you have started up form, not only Konoha but also the other ninja nations. You know that you could make a lot of new enemies because of this," the Toad Sage said in a very serious tone. Yeah, I know. That is why I will be personally traveling to all of the major nations once our village is finally established and we have some ninja. That is a good idea. I will try and cover this thing up as much as possible for the time being. But that is not what I have come to tell you. Kakashi looked at Naruto and Haku. "You should probably leave for this. Anyways, you are both probably tired from your trip." "No, Kakashi, I think they should stay for this, especially because this involved Naruto." Everyone turned to the old hermit, but the first to speak up was Haku. "What do you mean, Jiraiya-sama?" "Well, hello there, Haku, long time no see. You keep looking prettier and prettier with each couple of years," he said with a big smile on his face which turned evil. He looked over to Naruto and whispered, "You should watch out or else someone may try and pick her up." Naruto spluttered for a few seconds and Jiraiya and Kakashi laughed while Haku looked confused. "Now Jiraiya, what is it that you wanted to discuss about Naruto?" Kakashi asked, changing the subject. "Well, you remember all those years ago when I said that I would give him some personal training? Well, I believe that it is time for me to take him under my wing just like his father." Everyone in the room sat there with their mouths open. Well, everyone except for Naruto. "Really? I am going to be trained by you, Gigi? This is awesome. I can't wait. So where are you going to stay? You can have my room if you want." "Now hold on there, Gaki. I won't be staying here during you training." Naruto looked confused. "Then how are you going to train me?" Kakashi got the gist of what his sensei's sensei was saying. "You will be leaving for a training trip, son." Naruto and Haku's eyes got really big. "I will? Wow, for how long? If I am to train you properly, you will come back when you are 17. Naruto then started to count on his fingers like a kid. "But that's like 4 years. That is a long time to be away from home." He looked over at Haku and she looked at him. Kakashi got up and walked over to his son. "I know it will be a long time, but this is the best thing for you to do. And you will be doing a mission for our village during the very beginning of it, so Haku will be joining you. At least for the start." Both teens looked happier at that news. "Really? What kind of mission are you sending us on?" "Well, it is a retrieval mission. If we are going to have a proper village, then we will need a good medical nin to take care of our injured and to train other med nin." Haku spoke up. "Who is it that we will be retrieving?" Jiraiya was the one to answer this time. "My old teammate Tsunade." Haku's eyes got big at that. "Really? The legendary Senju Tsunade? The Slug Princess? She is my idol?" Naruto looked at her questioningly. "Why? She is the most powerful kunoichi in the shinobi world, that's why." "Yes, and we need her to help build out village. Now you both have 3 days before you leave. Naruto, this is so that you have time to pack for the trip. Now get moving, I have a lot of paperwork I need to get done." And with that the tree waked out of the Chokage's office. "So kids, what is a good place to eat around here?" the Toad Sage asked. Haku elbowed Naruto in the ribs before he could recommend a ramen stand. "There is a delightful sushi place just down the street." Jiraiya started to snicker at his new apprentice's pain and Naruto was pouting, rubbing his ribs. "I think you bruised them, Haku-chan," Naruto grumbled. Once they got there, they ordered their food and started to talk about the mission. "So how are we going to find Tsunade? I heard she left Konoha, and even with their ninja trying to find her, she hasn't been seen for years," Haku asked. Jiraiya smiled. "Well, that is because I have been giving them false information about her whereabouts. You see, she doesn't want to go back to that village. Nothing is there for her and none of her friends are loyal to the place. So she sees it as just a painful reminder of what she has lost. She asked me some time ago to throw them off track, so I did. The stupid idiots have been running around trying to find her on the exact other side of the country most of the time. He snickered at this. But I know where she is most of the time. So I take it you know where she is right now? The ice mistress asked. Not the slightest idea. I figured it would be a nice trip for the two of you, so I decided to teach you two how to find someone. Naruto got a big smile. So you are going to teach us about intelligence collecting. Sweet. Yep, but there is one thing I want to teach the two of you beforehand. And actually I have an idea on how to make this village one of the most feared villages in the shinobi world. Really? What is it? Naruto asked. Summoning. Both teens looked absolutely amazed at this. They continued to ask about it, but Jiraiya wouldn't say a word more about the subject. Once they finished their food, Jiraiya told them to meet him at the house around 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. The house, 8 a.m. Jiraiya, Gigi, hurry up and teach us how to summon already, Naruto said in an exasperated tone. Be patient, brat, and let me explain a few things. Naruto just crossed Ho's arms and pouted. Well, the first thing you need to understand is that to make a summon you have to make a blood contract. You can't just ask to make one though. Summons are very picky about who can be their contract holder. There are two ways to obtain a contract though. The easiest is to find someone who already has a contract and obtain their aid in negotiating with the summons to accept you. The second way, and the way I obtained my contract, is to reverse summon yourself. This way makes things very uncertain and you may not ever make it back. But it also reaps the better reward. If you do it this way you will find the contract that best suits your characteristics and abilities, thus making it easier for you to tag team with them. The way this happens is that you form the summoning technique without a summons. This will be LD, but here is the dangerous part. Most summons dislike intruders on their land. So they may attack you, but some are curious and will try to figure out what you are doing there. All I can say is if you take this rude prey to Kami that you run into one of the latter summons. You will then be tested by the bosses and sages of the summoning clan in order to see if you are worthy of the title of contract holder. If you pass, great, you make the blood pact, but if you don't there is a high risk of death. So now I will ask you, would either one of you like to take up the Toad summon or would you like to try your luck with a reverse summon? Remember though, if you sign with one clan you can't sign with any other. Both Haku and Naruto looked at each other and grinned. In unison they both said, reverse summon please. Jiraiya was glad but also disappointed that Nether picked the Toads. Oh well, this will be better for them in the long run. He then taught them the hand signs and gave each of them a special seal page. If you need to get back to here, just push your chakra into this seal and you will pop up right here. He gave them a smile and waved goodbye. At this both Haku and Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. I hope they don't run into too much danger, Jiraiya muttered under his breath. He then got a perverted grin on his face and decided that it was time to start on some long overdue research. With Naruto, once the smoke dissipated, he found himself in a dark forest. No one was around and he could hear nothing. Not the chirping of birds or the buzzing of bugs. It was perfectly silent. Naruto activated his eyes and was surprised to see that even with his ability the area was dark and there were shadows. The shadows seemed to move and watch him. Well, this is one creepy-ass place to live. Wonder what summon lives here. He continued to walk around the small clearing. Not seeing anything, he jumped up into a tree and sat down an overly large branch. Hey Kurama, any idea where we are? To be honest kid, I haven't the slightest idea. I would have thought that you would appear in the Forest of Confusion, which is the Fox's summoning realm, or even the Toad's Mountain, but this I have never seen, but I can feel the power and it is amazing. Whoever you found, they make the Kitsune look like children, and that is saying something. What do you mean? Well, see, there are summons of almost every type of creator. Some are more powerful than others and some give powers that you couldn't imagine even if you tried. The Sannin had such summons and there are several more that possess that type of power. The three most powerful known summons are the dragons, tigers, and wolves. Then come the foxes, followed by the Sannin summons. But I have no clue where in the world you have appeared. Well, that's helpful, sorry for trying to help explain things. So what so you reckon we do? I think we should wait here until something shows up. Hopefully it doesn't try to kill you, but if it does then try not to kill it. Why shouldn't I? Because then you will be out of a summon. Good point. Did you hear that? Hear what? The fact that you are a stupid idiot? Fuck you, ha ha ha. Settle down, kid, and keep observing your surroundings. Fine, but I will get you back for this. Just then a deep dark voice whispered from all directions, "What do we have here, an intruder or a guest? State your purpose, and if I think it worthy then I won't kill you." "Where the fuck are you?" "You will find out later. Now what is your name?" "Uzumaki Namikaze Hitaki Naruto." "That's one hell of a name, boy, and not that I know who any of those people's last names are, it's just fucking long. Now what is your quest?" "To seek the Holy Grail." "Oh wait, wrong thing, I am here to partake in a summoning contract that would best pair up with me." "Really now, you have come to obtain a summoning contract? How interesting. Now why do you believe you deserve such an honorary title?" "I don't. I am here to ask, not to demand. I wish to form a bond with the members of your clan, learn what you have to teach me, and hopefully be worthy to represent your clan. I am starting to like you, human. Now would you like to see who you are talking to?" "If you haven't noticed, my eyes are covered. Why would you ask me if I would like to see you?" "Don't be an idiot. I know you possess a dojutsu and that you are proficient enough with seals to place one on that 88 so that you can see through it. Now I will only ask you once more. Would you like to see who you are talking to?" "Yes, I would." "And how did you know?" A shadow seemed to materialize out of nowhere and into the middle of the clearing, and Naruto heard it speak, "Because we have been watching you." Naruto stared down at Shadow and under closer inspection noticed that it grew. The shadow continued to grow until it was about 20 feet high in the air. From the shadow Naruto could see 4 giant red orbs that seemed to stare right at him. He was petrified, he couldn't move, and he was starting to get scared. Once the shadows stopped growing, they started to dissipate. What he saw left his mouth hanging off its hinges. Where the shadow had covered, a giant 2-headed black dog with blood-red eyes stood emitting a pressure unlike any Naruto had felt, and that was saying something since he hung around Kurama. The large dog then looked at Naruto with all 4 eyes and said, "Fox, be quiet and let me do the talking." Naruto stared absolutely flabbergasted. "You know about Kurama-sensei and that we share telepathic communication?" "I said we have been watching you, haven't I?" Naruto simply nodded. "Well, I assume this is the point where we introduce each other, but since I already know all about you and your abilities, I will tell you a little about myself, my clan, and what you will have to do in order to be worthy of being our summoner. My name is Orthros and I am the technical boss of this realm. My older brother is the ruler of this realm and is considered the sage summon. His name is Cerberus. My clan is that of the Hellhounds, and we have not had a contract holder since the very early ages of your world's history. We are the keepers of the door of death and the path to the afterlife, the Shinigami's companions and most trusted servants. We control the powers of fire and earth to an unfathomable degree and have the ability to shadow travel and shadow cloak. We can also travel back and forth from hell or heaven at our discretion, and our most powerful ability is the ability to summon the Shinigami without the consequence of losing our souls. Well, only my brother and myself have this ability, for it consumes an immense amount of energy. But now I am just blithering, so let us cut to the chase. We are a mighty race, one that even the mighty dragons fear and revere. Now I am just blithering. Do you understand what happens when you use a summoning jutsu without a contract?" Naruto was confused by this questions, and it showed on his face as he answered, "Don't you then perform a reverse summon and appear in the realm of the beings that are most similar to yourself?" Orthros laughed, a deep heavy sounding one. No, my boy, that couldn't be any more incorrect. Before you can understand this, I must say that time here moves considerably slower than that of your realm. All of the summoning realms are connected. You see, we live on a different plane that you view it, that summoning connects our 2 planes together, and that the different clans are like different countries. Naruto gave a nod signaling that he understands what's going on. Well, for every hour passes in your world, a day passes here. So when you perform a reverse summoning, all of the bosses get a signal and we meet in order to discuss who will obtain this summoner. Naruto's eyes opened wide at that. "So you're saying that you decided to take me on as your summoner?" "Yes, young one, but we had to fight off both the foxes and the toads." "You say you, the foxes because of Kurama and the toads because of your heritage. In all honesty, the only reason we obtained you was because of the Shinigami." "What does the Shinigami have to do with this?" "Well, you see, Shinigami, Kami, and Yami are the main powers of the universe." "Who's Yami? Who's Yami?" Orthros looked like he was just floored. "Are you telling me you do not know who Yami is?" "Yeah, is that a bad thing?" What are humans teaching their young these days? The great hellhound muttered under his breath. Well, to put it simply, Kami and Yami are brother and sister. Kami is the keeper of heaven and Yami is the keeper of hell. They are the creators of this universe and watch over it. See it as Kami being the loving mother and Yami being the stern father. Don't get me wrong though, both are kind people, but they will not leave evil unpunished. Now the interesting being is Shinigami. He is not actually a god, he is a servant to Kami and Yami. There has been several Shinigamis throughout history and we have served each and every one. And it seems as though the current one is ready to retire. Retire? Can a Shinigami do that? Yes, they can, but one after they have served a minimum term of 100,000 years? Naruto whistled at this. That is a long time, Orthros-sama. Now what does that have to do with me? Well, it turns out that Shinigami has decided who his successor will be and we are to take him on as our summoner for his training. Naruto just stared at him now. No fucking way, you have to be kidding me. The Shinigami wants me to be his successor? Yes, and that is the reason that we have chosen you to become our summoner. Now this is also your choice, would you like to become our summoner? I have to think about this, and I also have no idea what a Shinigami does. It would help if I could talk to the current Shinigami. He added that last part under his breath. Then Orthros smiled. I thought you would never ask, and with that an enormous chakra pulse came from the two-headed hellhound. Then the area became darker, if that was possible, and a dark voice came out of the darkness. So Orthros, how has your talk with young Naruto been? Orthros bowed to what looked like a shimmer in the dark. It has been going well and I have just told him about possibly being the next Shinigami. Very good, now I take it that you, Naruto, have questions for me. Naruto was seriously freaking out at this point. The Shinigami himself was before him and was not here to take his soul, but rather offer him the position of Shinigami. Why yes, I was wondering, was it worth it? A deep but light-hearted laugh came from all over. I feared the same thing when I was offered the position. To be honest, it is a pain sometimes, but overall yes it is. You get to watch over the world. You can see into the future, well, to an extent. And you will be able to communicate directly with Yami-sama and Kami-sama. But even more importantly, you get to have a major influence over the world. Plus it is a major power trip, he added in the last part and chuckled. Naruto chuckled a little at this, loosening up to the light-hearted Shinigami. What will happen to me if I accept the position? Several things will happen, but you will not have the same power as myself until your physical body dies. First and foremost, you will obtain the ability to collect souls. This will add to your power by a small margin and you will also obtain all of their abilities, bloodlines included. But the only way to do this is to kill the individual yourself. You cannot claim a soul someone else took. Secondly, you will be able to summon myself into battle, but that will come at the cost of a soul that you have collected, the most powerful one to be exact. You will lose the power you have taken from that soul as well. Thirdly and finally, you will obtain a scythe. This weapon will become your partner and have a consciousness. It will be with you and grow with you, become more powerful as you do. These are the blessings given to a Demi-Shinigami, and in return you must serve Kami-sama and Yami-sama for a minimum of 100,000 years. Naruto was completely floored. All of that power on top of having the Hellhound summon. What did I do to get so lucky? The Shinigami just laughed. That is because you are pure of heart and strong of will. One such as you only comes every 100,000 years or so. Yami and Kami-samas must have made it that way. So you can read my mind? Well, no shit, squirt, it comes with being one of the most powerful being in the world. But no, you will not have this power. Damn. Well, I've got one final question for you, Shinigami-sama. What is it, child? Will I be able to see my loved ones when they die, or will I be forced to watch the world and wait out the 100,000 years to see them again? A feeling of sadness washed over Naruto. No, I am afraid you will not. The obligation that the Shinigami has to the world is too great for us to make stops in heaven for chit-chat. It has been 136,000 years since I last saw my wife. There isn't a day that I don't miss her, but this is my duty and I will serve it my best. I will be able to spend all of eternity with her once I retire, so what is a couple hundred years? Naruto felt bad for the Shinigami and decided that even if he would have to wait 100,000 years to see his loved ones, he would take the post as Shinigami. Uzumaki Namikaze Hitaki Naruto accept the position as Demi-Shinigami and will spend the next 100,000 years in the service of Yami-sama and Kami-sama. Once that was said, the shape of a handsome young man with jet black hair appeared. He was average height and had a lithe frame. He wore a black trench coat with a gray shirt, black pants and black dress shoes. On his back was a scythe about the same height as he was. Then I grant you the name Shinigami and I bless you with the powers the title comes with. With those words Naruto felt a sudden rush of power. He shut his eyes and took in a deep breath. When he opened them he saw the man with a smile on his face and the giant two-headed heel hound waging his tail with what seemed to be a djinn. Naruto smiled at them both and turned to the Shinigami. So when do I get my badass scythe? The Shinigami laughed. You don't just get to have a scythe, boy, you have to make it. Naruto just looked dumbstruck. What do you mean I have to make it? I have no idea how to smith. Orthros laughed at this. Well, it looks like you better get started, now doesn't it? Well, who do you recommend? The blonde-haired Shinigami asked. There is a man who will teach you the ways, but you will have to find him yourself. You will come across a blue man and another with red eyes during your trip in the lands of fire. One of them will have an older brother that forged the 7 swords, 6 of which are complete. Their wielders were known as the most powerful swordsmen in over a century. This man is the one who will teach you. And there is a special technique that must be performed in order for you to have a sentient weapon. He knows it and will teach you how to perform it. Naruto nodded. Okay, so all I have to find is some blue guy and a guy with red eyes and ask them if they have a brother who smiths. Shouldn't be too hard. Well, now that that is taken care of, I will see you later. I have to get back to work, and with that he disappeared. Now I believe it is time to take you to see Cerberus. The sage summon guy. Yes, he is in possession of our summoning contract and will tell you more about what it means to be the summoner of the Hellhounds. With Haku was wandering around a frozen forest. Surprisingly, she was not cold. In fact, she felt very comfortably here. Guess this is due to my bloodline, she mentally shrugged. She just kept walking around waiting to come across some being. After what felt like 30 minutes she heard a rustling in the bushes. She looked over to whom and saw a massive silver-white wolf come out. The wolf was easily larger than a horse and the silver sheen of its fur gave it a beautiful dangerous look. The wolf walked right up to her and gave her a quick sniff. Then she lowered her head. Welcome Haku-san to our domain. I am Shimo. I am here to bring you to our camp. Haku nodded and let the large wolf lead her to the wolf clan's camp. So I take it you picked me to become your summoner? Yes Haku-san, that is the case. How did you come up with that conclusion? Not many humans know of the ways of the summons. It was kind of easy to conclude since you already knew my name. At this she smiled. The wolf laughed. I guess that would give it away now, wouldn't it? The two continued to talk for the rest of the trip and quickly made a bond. Once they reached the camp, Haku was amazed at the beauty of it. The camp was a colossal cave. The ceiling easily reached up several miles high. Inside the walls were covered in crystals and many pools lay throughout it. You could hear the sound of puppy yips, laughter, and also that of water cascading down from the walls. Haku smiled. Shimo noticed and smiled at her newfound charge. I see you like our home. Haku looked up at her and nodded her head. When they entered, everyone looked over at the two. Some bowed their heads a little. The pups waved their tails and started to run around in excitement. Shimo led Haku to the end near a large waterfall. If you looked carefully at the waterfall, you could tell there was an alcove behind it. Shimo sat down and looked expectantly at the waterfall, and the rest of the pack quieted. To Haku's surprise, the water seemed to part on its own volition and out came the largest thing she had ever seen. The wolf before her was at least twice the size of Gamabunta, who she had seen once thanks to Jiraiya. He had pitch black fur with flecks of silver around his muzzle. The giant wolf looked down at her and gave a smile. Well, what she took to be a smile. Haku, welcome to our home. I am glad you have been able to join us. My name is Kuroshikan and I am the ruler of this realm. You seem to know what all is going on, so I will make this quick. Would you like to become our summoner? Yes, it would be my honor. At this she felt a push of chakra form Kuroshikan and a very large scroll appeared before her. In order to become our summoner, you must open that and sign it with your own blood. Now I will tell you this now. I have the ability to see into the future and I can tell that you will become our greatest summoner in all the years that our worlds have been connected. Because of this, I will allow you to sign this contract in correlation with Shimo so that she will be directly connected to you. This means that she can summon herself from this plane into yours without any costs. This will allow her to stay with you at all times and you will be able to form a deeper bond and become summoning partners. Do you accept? Yes, Kuroshikan-sama. Good, then open the seal. She did so. Shimo, cut your paw and press it to the empty summoner spot. Then Haku signed the contract over her paw print and it will be done. The two performed the ceremony and smiled at each other. I guess there is a reason I was the first to find you, Shimo said with a small smile. Yes, I had planned that. Now Haku, there are several things I must explain to you before you leave. Back in the human realm, Jiraiya was currently hiding in a tree overlooking the recently built hot spring. He sat there giggling like a schoolgirl when he felt a familiar presence land next to him. Jiraiya-sama, I hope you aren't staring at my wife in the hot springs. I may not be able to stop her from killing you if she sees you. What fun is there in peeping if you don't take any risks, the old hermit said in an offhand manner, plus you bagged yourself a hot one, kid. So what does the mighty Chokage want? Kakashi was a little confused on how to react at first. He felt honored that his idol thought he had a hot wife but was also pissed of that he was staring at his wife. So he just smacked him upside the head. That was for peeping on my wife. Now I want to talk to you about my son's training trip. Jiraiya was rubbing the spot where Kakashi had just hit. That hurt, you bastard, he growled. So what do you want to know? Well, since you are headed out for 4 years, will you all be coming back during that time? The wife is worried about him. Jiraiya smirked. Don't you mean that you are going to miss the brat? And I'm sorry, but no, this is a time where he will need to focus and he will mature faster if you all aren't around. He doesn't know me that well, so he will be able to reshape himself and become the man that he wants to be rather than the one that he has been. Think about it, when you, Anko, and Naruto left the Konoha, you were given a fresh start. You're alive and act differently here than you did back in Fire Country. This is his chance. Kakashi looked a bit sad, but he understood what the super pervert was talking about. I'm not going to like it, but I see why you are doing it. What all are you going to do while you're out? Well, I'm getting on in years and people in my profession don't normally live as long as my sensei did. So I'm planning on giving him my abilities as an intelligence gatherer and all of my resources to the brat to carry on my legacy. Kakashi was very surprised by this. Are you sure? You know that Konoha will be beyond pissed off at you, and when they find out they will label you as a traitor. At this, Jiraiya nearly busted a gut laughing. I am a traitor to that village, you know it as well as I do. They lost my allegiance after they tried to kill you and Naruto. But I have a genius plan to downright fuck over Konoha and make it so that Naruto becomes my apprentice in their eyes. He almost giggled, he was so excited. You see, I plan on wandering around for a bit, but I will bring the boy into Konoha under the guise of a boy I found and took under my wing. We can have him become a ninja in Konoha and basically do exactly what I do. Plus it will give him a chance to have the complete ninja experience. Kakashi started to smile. You may be a pervert, but you are genius. But we have to come up with a backstory and also be able to either hide my son's abilities or cover them up. He has too much chakra for a child his age, and those seals you gave him just made him inhuman. I mean, seriously, I was sparring with him the other day and asked if he would release his movement speed restraints. That was a mistake on my behalf. The boy seemed able to perform the Hiraishin without even using Minato's three-pronged kunai. Jiraiya was surprised by that. Really, he is that fast? His father came up with those seals and had them on permanently except for emergencies. He told me that they increased his speed and strength by leaps and bounds, but I wouldn't have thought that they could have this much of an effect on someone. I mean, I even have one, but I couldn't reach that sort of speed if I tried. Are you sure about his abilities? Kakashi simply pointed at his Sharingan for confirmation. Jiraiya simply shook his head. I should have guessed. But to answer your question about hiding Naruto's abilities, I have already come up with a plan. He doesn't. Kakashi looked flabbergasted, but Jiraiya, if he doesn't hide his abilities, Danzo may try to turn him into one of his mindless drowns or even worse, kill him as a liability. Kakashi, don't worry about it. Naruto isn't stupid enough to show off that much. But who are we to say that he can't have some fun? I am planning on putting him in the Chunin exams that are to be held there in the next few years. He will be there earlier going on small missions with the Chunin hopefuls, and once he obliterates the competition we will leave and go on another adventure. I plan on training him to becoming the most powerful shinobi this world has ever seen, one powerful enough to challenge the abilities expads. He has the potential too, of that I am certain, but I can say I'm going to miss him, and I am sure that Anko is going to throw a fit later on. She has been bringing up the topic of having a child of our own, so maybe it is time to have another child crawling around the house. Jiraiya smirked, another child being raised by the great Sharingan no Kakashi and his wife the Kobarakuhi no Anko. I have been wondering why you two haven't popped out a little one of your own. Well, with raising Naruto, fighting off Hunter Nin, creating a new hidden village, and preventing Anko from killing you has kind of kept us rather busy over the years. But now that we have settled down and the Hunter Nin have left us alone for the past couple of years, I believe it is about time to create a new Silver Fang. The two continued to talk amiable for several hours until two chakra bursts could be felt just underneath the tree the two ninja were standing on. They both jumped down, preparing to see what news the two would bring. To the right, a blast of black flames shot out of the earth and Naruto walked through them to appear before them. Well, walked isn't the right word for it. He was riding what seemed to be a wolf with jet black fur and glowing red eyes. To the left, a wall of ice appeared and Haku came out riding a pure white wolf. They both looked at Jiraiya and Kakashi and in tandem said, "I now have a contract." The end. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.